Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow underway on this Monday edition. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network, which includes our YouTube page, streaming live there. You can search out OutKick. We hope you'll subscribe while you're there. You can also join us across many streaming platforms, including live at OutKick.com and on social, plus this great radio partner. Chad, a jam-packed show today. Guest-wise, Willie Colon will join us. Former offensive guard of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Jets. Yeah, plenty of great stories and analysis of the NFL going into 2023 season coming up. Plus a very special guest of OutKick, Charlie Arnold, joins us in hour number 2. Plenty to discuss with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and, you know, the hoax, as I've referred to it, is trying to fool everyone that they're actually going to fight. We'll get the details coming up from Charlie. Plenty of headlines as well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hutton. I think we have the perfect judge's ruling for Charlie today based on an experience of mine on Friday afternoon. The experience I'm undergoing right now, you to a certain extent also, is I haven't stopped sneezing for 14 hours.
It's been brutal.
I've never experienced anything like this in my life. I have terrible allergies. I feel like I have the hiccups of sneezes right now that you can't get rid of.
You need someone to scare you?
I sneeze every 15 minutes. For the last 14 hours. I slept 4 hours last night because I would wake myself up sneezing. That's how bad it is. There is something in the air that is destroying me. That's just my precursor to the show today. But I'm going to soldier through. Hutton's going to soldier through, and we're going to give you 3 hours of an outstanding show starting right now.
Jim Harbaugh
Let's start over. Let's run the open again. Now we're going to start. Okay.
Jim Harbaugh at Michigan leads our headlines, Chad, because he is going to soldier through the entire season. He's avoiding suspension, at least for now, from the NCAA. The negotiated punishment is no longer on the table. It fell through, and not because Jim Harbaugh declined the offer. It's because the NCAA's Committee on Infractions did so. They threw in the towel. They're declining the deal. And the vice president of the NCAA that oversees this is Derek Crawford. He released this statement over the weekend that Michigan infractions case is related to impermissible on- and off-campus recruiting during COVID-19's dead period and impermissible coaching activities, not a cheeseburger. It is not uncommon for the COI, the Committee on Infractions, to seek clarification on key facts prior to accepting. The COI may also reject the deal if it determines that the agreement is not in the best interest of the association or the penalties are not reasonable. If the involved parties cannot resolve a case through the negotiated resolution process, it may proceed to a hearing, but the committee believes cooperation is the best avenue to quickly resolve issues. That from Derek Crawford, the vice president from the NCAA. Cooperation is what has everyone ticked off with the NCAA about Harbaugh here. And, Chad, it seems as though if he just doesn't point out the fact that this is and push the narrative that this is over a food thing instead of a practice and contact with recruits or players during COVID-19 and pushing the opposite end of whatever they've been talking about behind closed doors, that they end up settling this over a 1-month period against Michigan's schedule, which is not impressive for those four games he would be missing. Now it appears that the NCAA is going to come after him again next year, and that's where we see the infractions meet the discipline, which could also mean Harbaugh's out at Michigan, headed towards the National Football League. What do you think?
Well, so Derek with the NCAA said it's not uncommon for this. Let me tell you what is uncommon. For the NCAA to release such a biting comment on anything. I mean, I can never recall a time where the NCAA has commented on media reports in a pissed-off fashion about something. This is not about a cheeseburger. Do you know who has pushed that narrative? Everyone who covers the University of Michigan has pushed that this whole thing comes down to they asked Jim Harbaugh, who paid for the burger for a recruit, and he said he didn't know. This is about much more than just that. Now, we can sit here and go back and forth on what power does the NCAA have, what is this. I'll tell you this. Tennessee was accused of a lot of the same stuff. It is not just impermissible benefits or money or a cheeseburger. COVID-19 dead period violations. Not to say that Michigan and Tennessee were the only two to violate this, but Michigan got caught. The difference here is Tennessee turned into the most cooperative witness in the history of the NCAA and fired Jeremy Pruitt and the entire staff. Michigan and Jim Harbaugh would not answer direct questions, played little games with the NCAA, and Michigan decided to do nothing to Jim Harbaugh other than what was a begrudgingly accepted 4-game self-imposed suspension for Harbaugh that Harbaugh didn't want, and he made that clear at Big Ten Media Days that he didn't want to do this. Well, now the NCAA comes back and says, not good enough. What I take that as, if Michigan goes forward and he coaches every game this year, he will be suspended for an entire season the following year. The more likely scenario is he goes to the NFL, that he's not even going to mess with it, that he will coach one more year at Michigan and go to the NFL.
And he's flirted with that the last 2 years.
That's my prediction now.
And he says that he's got 20 players that are going to be in the NFL next year that are on his roster. This could be setting all of that up, Chad. Absolutely. And now we see about the NCAA doing even more investigating behind the scenes with everything. Crazy story with Michael Oher, whose backstory from Ole Miss, high school to college, becoming a first-round pick, The Blind Side, with Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw. We've all seen it. It grossed $300 million plus. He filed in Shelby County, Tennessee today, looking for an injunction, claiming that he was never adopted by Sean and Leanne Toohey. Yes, you're hearing that right. When you see the headline, you do a double take. The central element of the Blind Side story, he says, is a total lie concocted by the Tooheys to enrich themselves on his overall story and his success with this film. He says that the couple tricked him into signing this document that made them the conservator of all of his finances and worked out all of the deals on the table as soon as he turned 18 years old. Of course, they took him in to their home, and he's a part of their family in high school. And upon turning 18, he signs this document believing that was the document that officially made him a part of the family, that he was adopted into the family, the immediate family. Turns out that he found out this past February that was not the case, that he had never been legally adopted. And now he's looking to go back and say, we want to file an injunction. We want to stop any and all benefits that they have using my name, image, and likeness, which would be the money coming in from the film, and that they made millions off of this, both of them plus their birth children, which is also mentioned here. Crazy. And to think that he signed this at 18, he's 37 now. I'm adopted, and I'm 39. I'm trying to think, okay, and I was adopted very soon after birth. But if I had to sign this document at 18 and finding out now that nothing legally through the court system is actually valid, I can't wrap my mind around what he must have felt when he found that out, allegedly found this out in February, according to his attorney. And they've been profiting off of the conservatorship, which reminds me of like a Britney Spears element to this.
Well, and there's some in the story about they explain the conservatorship as just legalese, as adopting him. That this is the way we adopt you, is by doing this. And that was, I guess, tricking him that way. If they took all the profits from the movie, I mean, that's not right.
The royalties, yeah.
Yeah, if they negotiated, I think the report was 2.5% of all profits from then on out, he got none of that, then none of that is right.
And the business benefits that they had the ability to sign in his name.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like it's got to be a meet in the middle type truth to this. I think there's probably some truth on both sides. I'm hard-pressed to believe everything Michael Oher's saying, and I'm probably going to be hard-pressed to believe everything the Tooheys are saying about it also. They probably did take some liberties somewhere along the way. It's crazy because, in thinking about this story, this would not be as big of a story if Sandra Bullock did not do such a good job in the movie. The movie was nominated for an Oscar, and she won an Oscar for Best Actress. I'm just thinking about if this was just another random run-of-the-mill movie that wasn't a big deal, that wasn't great, this would not be as big of a story. And it sounds funny, but I'm being serious. Sandra Bullock did too good of a job in this movie that made everybody believe that it was this just overwhelming Christian-type story of giving and generosity and taking this young man in. But if you watch it with a cynical eye, and I am a cynic, I watch it and think, man, they didn't do this for a lot of kids who weren't five-star football recruits. And this kid did end up at their alma mater at Ole Miss. And, man, this movie is really good. I'm not saying they took him in knowing they're going to make a movie about this kid one day and he's going to make millions. But, again, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Ends up becoming a first-round pick, right? Like, all of that plays into this. And this goes – so Michael Oher was briefly in Nashville. And whenever he signed here, I remember at his locker, he was kind of pissed off about the fact that questions were still coming in about the blind side. And he was saying, like, I really don't like how I was portrayed in this. He said there's been so much created from the blind side that I'm grateful for, which is why you might find it as a shock that the experience surrounding the story has also been a large source of some of my deepest hurt and pain over the last 14 years. This is through his book. Beyond the details of the deal, the politics, the money behind the book and movie, it was the principle of the choices some people made that cut me the deepest. And what he's asking for, he's going through the finances, and any money that was earned through his name, he wants to receive his fair share of the compensation that allegedly the Tuohys took and he didn't. I'm fascinated by this.
Well, he also says that the movie depicted him as unintelligent and dumber than he actually was and is, and that he fought that stigma throughout his career, that people treated him like he was stupid because of how he's portrayed in the movie.
Yeah, and your stereotypical feel-good story is what it turned into, right, with the happy ending. But he was not happy with how the film came out. And I didn't watch that movie. I mean, look, you're going to watch yourself with a critical eye if someone's portraying you. I didn't watch that movie and think Michael Oher was dumb. I thought he hasn't been properly schooled, and he had a really rough upbringing. I never thought he was, naturally stupid or anything. And the Baltimore Ravens clearly didn't think that because they drafted him in the first round. He was a two-time All-American at Ole Miss. So he did a pretty good job overcoming that stigma if, in fact, it was there. Chad, the awareness has been out there about human trafficking, but Tim Tebow is raising more awareness, sounding the alarm about the magnitude of human trafficking that can go on in our own backyards. He joined Dan Dockich earlier today to spread further concern and the word about how we all have to be cognizant of what's going on, not just in other countries, but right here in the United States. And that he's certainly doing this and tying into Swamp Kings, which will debut August 22nd, Untold Swamp Kings, which is detailing that 2 national title run in 3 years from 2006 to 2008. Here is Heisman Trophy winner Tim Tebow discussing Swamp Kings with Dan.
Talked to Urban the other day about Swamp Kings. He said it's going to be, he's looking forward to it, thinks it's going to be dynamic, thinks it's going to be great. I admired you and your teams. Give me your thoughts as the Netflix, which I think is going to rival The Last Dance, Michael Jordan's. Give me your thoughts on what you're expecting out of Swamp Kings.
I don't know exactly. I think probably really entertaining. I think in the storyline of what we got to live through, there's just so many highs and lows. And I think just the storylines of that is teams at the top, is disappointing losses, is relationships, is a brotherhood, is just a really special time that's full of a lot of great memories. But I'm intrigued to see how it all turns out as well. But I do think people will be entertained, and I think it'll be something that is hopefully intriguing for a lot of people. But when I think back about it, I just am so grateful for the friendships, the mentors, the relationships, the brothers, and then also the platform that time gave me to be able to do what we're doing now, and trying to make an impact for so many people that need it. So, I hope it'll be something that people will enjoy.
You can check out the full interview online through the YouTube page. Just search out OutKick. Great job there by Dan. Don't At Me mornings here across the OutKick network. Chad, he can say everything about the camaraderie and the brotherhood. I'm viewing this through the lens of all the craziness that took place and the different personalities, individuals, characters that were in that locker room at the same time in the same time span. That is what makes Swamp Kings worth watching to me, with the intrigue going in. Not the, if we wanted it from the Tebow end of this, it would be Untold Tim Tebow. And Swamp Kings has to be much better in detailing the backstories of the good and more specifically the bad.
Yeah, it'd be about the 5 times that he got guys to go to Sunday school with him on the team if it was told from Tim Tebow's perspective, which is fine. And I mean this as a compliment to Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow deflected a lot of bad stuff from that team. So I want to see if they get into the fact that Tebow, as the superstar and a great guy and a great Christian dude, how much did he shield what was a very, very bad boy locker room? We'll see if they discuss it in the documentary. I can't wait to watch it.
Crazy dynamic from one end of the spectrum to the other. Willie Colon joins us, former NFL offensive guard. That's next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
Jason Aldean's new song. Jason Aldean's new song, Don't Try It in a Small, Try That in a Small Town, is awesome. It's basically saying to you Antifa clowns out there and you rioters, look, you can go ahead and burn down Democratic-run cities. And the cops, at least in Indianapolis, will be told by alleged drunken mayor to stand down. That's fine. But don't try that in a small town. You saw what happened in Crown Point, Indiana. Crown Point, Indiana, there was rumored that a group was coming in to tear it up. Crown Point's just a little south of Gary. And all the fellas got their shotguns out and lined the streets. Do you know how much trouble there was in Crown Point, Indiana? Bam. 0. Zip. Nada. Liberals went nuts. Oh, this is racism. No, not really. Hey, there's white Antifa. There's black Antifa. You're just protecting your streets. You're just protecting the businesses that you use. See, here in Indy, we did not protect the businesses that we use. We let idiots run wild. We let idiots burn. We let idiots break. We let idiots destroy. That's not the way to go about it. You try that in a small town. Here's what happened in Ottawa Lakes, Michigan, where my wife's from. There was a rumor, group was coming up from both Toledo and Cincinnati. And they were going to go into this gun store and loot it. Word got out. Neighborhood app got started. You know what happened? The fellas, I think it was Ottawa Lakes. There's another town right there. It could be a different town. I don't know. They're all there. You know what happened? The fellas surrounded and protected the gun store. You know the rest of the story, right? The Antifa pussies came up, looked around, saw they were being challenged, and like every single group of bullies, turned around and left. Damn right. That's a small town. And if you think Don't Try It in a Small Town country music, television or whatever is racist, tough. Good for you. We don't. It's number 1 on the charts. And I put out a tweet earlier today of an African-American guy, big, strong guy, that said, hey, don't be coming down here to Alabama. African-American guy. I'll retweet it. Said, don't even think about coming down here and starting that crap. Don't even think about it. Well, guess what? He ain't wrong. It ain't about black or white. It's about protecting the businesses that you use against people that are trying to destroy your town. And Jason Aldean ain't wrong, baby. And you liberals can bitch and whine and moan and write your articles and try to cancel him or cancel me for standing up for it or get mad at OutKick. I don't care. I love seeing what happened in Ottawa Lakes. You want to come in here? Ain't happening. It just ain't happening. Crown Point, Indiana, everybody called them racist because it was white guys with shotguns. You know what they did? They protected their town. I wish we'd have protected our town here in Indy. You go into Indy, it is awful, horrendous, horrific. Nothing going on downtown for the most part.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hi, Mike with Hunting Withrow rolls on across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. If you're watching on YouTube, you can join Chad in the chat. Already busy. Chad's chatting away right now.
Royce in the chat has just hijacked the whole thing early. We've got to.
Royce is back.
We might need to nuke him at some point. We'll have Matty Ice monitor that situation.
You
but
can
other
monitor.
than that,
you can join the conversation there. Just search out OutKick. Hope you'll subscribe while you're there.
It's active. Hit us up on Twitter, too.
Hopefully, Willie Colon joins us in a couple of minutes here. Former offensive guard, full of some great stories about Big Ben with the Steelers. Of course, his short time with the Jets. And overall, big storylines across the NFL. Zach Martin has agreed to a new extension with the Dallas Cowboys. So that holdout is ending. Jonathan Taylor is back with the Colts. Details on all of that coming up. How about the James Harden calling out 76ers president Daryl Morey, who was also the former general manager of the Houston Rockets and who had a great relationship with Harden up until the point where he left the organization in Houston, took out a full-page ad in the Chronicle, and in his statement, it was a photo above the statement. It was Morey and Harden whenever he really had the goodbye farewell in the paper. This past weekend, while in China, James Harden goes all in on Daryl Morey, Chad, calling him a liar, and doubles down on it in front of those that are in attendance for a special Adidas brand thing in China. And I think he's calling him a liar because of the fact that he wants to be traded. He wants out. And he picked up the option, a $35 million plus option for this upcoming season, with that in mind. He wants to go to the Clippers. Morey, and upwards of 3 hours ago, says that's not going to happen. They maintain the stance that he's unmoved by the comments, and he's holding firm in his stance that he will not trade him unless they get a better team. It's a fascinating dynamic that he does this in China when Morey in 2019 had the tweet supporting Hong Kong. And that caused an uproar with the NBA because one of their own dared to, support those that were not in favor of Chinese politics. Well,
it is comical that these statements are coming while in China about Daryl Morey.
With a shoe company.
Look, I mean, yeah, he probably does appear to be a liar to James Harden because I'm sure he told him, just sign the option and I'll get you traded. And what Morey failed to tell him was, we're in the business of doing business.
Yeah.
We're an NBA team. We want to get the most possible that we can, and we got a stiff asking price. So if we don't get that, you're not going to get traded. That's what he didn't tell him. That's what's happening now. No one's meeting their demands on what they want for Harden, so now Harden's pissed. And look, understandably so, but Daryl Morey's got a job to do. And the job is for the 76ers, not disgruntled James Harden.
No doubt. Pleased to be joined by Willie Colon, SiriusXM host on Channel 82. Morning, men. Super Bowl champion as well with the Pittsburgh Steelers, also play with the Jets. Great perspective headed our way. Willie, great to have you on, man. Hope things are well.
All is well. Thanks for having me, guys.
No doubt. I want to get to the NFL in a moment, but let's crank it up a bit. Was the S-Bar era on Carson Street the greatest era of bar hopping, and if so, why?
Man, it was legit. It was probably better than Beale Street. It's probably better than Bourbon Street in its prime. There was a lot going on at the S-Bar, man. I was fortunate to have a lot of cold one, dance with a lot of beautiful women, and on top of that, meet a lot of celebrities. I remember I met Bubba Sparks. I met Michael Moore. A lot of random celebrities I had the opportunity to drink with. So it was a good time.
Did you have a chance to drink or party with a priest in one of those visits to Nashville at one point, the city that we're broadcasting out of right now?
Yeah, I see you've been talking to Ramon Foster.
Ragu.
Yes, I had a great time in Nashville with a priest. Shout out to Father Paul. I love him to death. We had a good old time. I'll leave it there.
that will stay in the confession, no doubt.
Right.
Willie Colon, our guest. Zach Martin, just word coming down now. He's ending the holdout. He's returning to the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't know how this was going to end. Turns out he gets an extension. What do you make of it? It's upwards of what? It's a 2-year, $36 million, I believe, and just glanced at it during the last commercial break. Are you surprised that it ended the way it did, or did you think he was going to demand a trade?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, Zach Martin's going to go down as one of the best guards to play this game. I'm a big fan of his work and what he's been able to do in this league. I think Jerry knew if they was going to have a chance, they was going to have some stability in the offensive line. You can say what you want about Dak Prescott's play and all the surrounding parties around him, but the offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys is pivotal. And I know it's probably cliche to say, but Zach Martin has been playing at a high level for a long time. He does not only brings leadership but grit, extremely tough, and he's one of the best to do in the league right now at his age. So I think Jerry's smart. We like to consider him a smart businessman, and he had to make sure one of his best players on that offense was satisfied, and I think he did so.
8-time All-Pro, like that speaks for itself from Zach Martin, and he was the pick, by the way, Chad. We're talking a lot about Johnny Manziel recently with the Untold Johnny Football documentary on Netflix. He was the player the Cowboys selected instead of Manziel in that draft. Willie Colon, our guest here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Best Steelers season other than the Super Bowl era, Super Bowl run for you. Which one would you point to and why if you're telling a story?
Well, I think we didn't end well, and I didn't begin well because I ended up getting hurt that season. But I think our 2010 year when we made that run to the Super Bowl in Dallas, and we kind of fell to the demise of Aaron Rodgers and that Green Bay team, who was a very good team. But I think overall that defense I had a chance to play with again, they played a different brand of football. I was used to playing bully football. That was kind of the mantra of our team. But they looked to break the will of every team they played against. And then have some of the guys we had, you're talking about a young Antonio Brown. I think Mike Wallace was there. Antoine Randall had came back and played with us. So we had, and Hines Ward was there. So we had a list of Rashad Mendenhall for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
So we had a very good team, a very storied team, a very decorated team on both sides of the football. And, it was tough for me because I ended up getting hurt that year. But overall, I enjoyed that outfit. And that was a young Marquise Pouncey had just stepped into the building. So we had a very good young, from top to bottom, very good, solid football team.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Aaron Rodgers because I will tie this into a follow-up about Aaron Rodgers. But it always helps because your job as an offensive lineman is to help protect the quarterback when you have a good relationship with the quarterback. What was Big Ben like as a teammate for you guys and someone that you wanted to protect?
He was awesome. It's funny. We started off a little rocky, me and him, but we ultimately ended like brothers. I love him to this day. When you look at his podcast and clips from his podcast, he's popping beers, eating donuts, got shades on. He's having a good time. You can tell he's enjoying retirement. But that's the Ben I grew to love and knew behind the curtain when he wasn't in the building, kind of winning games for the Pittsburgh Steelers and being the Superman we know he could be. He was fun. He was loving. He was a guy you wanted to have a beer with. He loves to hunt and fish and a family man through and through. But we grew up together. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand during my time with the Steelers. Ben is only a year or two removed from me. and we were like brothers. We ate, we drank, we woke up, we hung out, we did everything together. So when I call them my brothers, not really cliche, because we did everything kind of like a pack. We did everything together. So and we grew up together. We started off as young men, if so to speak, and we left as men and with families. So he was awesome.
Well, you were also a New York Jet, and that gets to my follow-up on Aaron Rodgers. Willie, I think one of the big surprises of episode 1 of Hard Knocks for a lot of people was just how likable Aaron Rodgers was around his team. And even the footage of some guys, sort of Candid Cameron style, linemen saying, man, he's one of the all-time greats, and dude is awesome too. He's fun to hang out with. I enjoy talking to him. Is that what you've heard about Aaron Rodgers for the most part? And what do you think about the impact he and that type of personality could have in that Jets locker room?
Well, I think Aaron Rodgers is extremely smart. I think he's cerebral. I think he understands what the media and how the media portrays him. He had to step into New York, not only the locker room, but step into the city and realize that he kind of had to win them over. And when he did so in a great fashion, he ate the pizza, he shook the hands, he kissed the babies. He was in Knicks games, he showed up in Yankee games, he was at Taylor Swift concerts. He's done everything right, landing into the city that pretty much will break you down to your knees with all eyes on him, so to speak. And I think right now, when you look at Aaron Rodgers, I think he's the ultimate professional. And I'm not surprised the young guys have grown a liking to him because they probably played with him a million times in Madden. This is a generation that loves video games, and they watched him be, all-world Aaron Rodgers in the video game. So now they're seeing him in real time and as a real person. And I think they're in awe of him. Much like what I dealt with my time with the Jets. My second year with the Jets, Michael Vick walked into that locker room, and I can remember seeing the look on guys' faces. They couldn't believe that was the Michael Vick that had played in video games with. They wore their jerseys. They grew up putting on sneakers of his, and everything that Michael Vick had to offer. They were about him and his brand. And I can remember our locker room taking a week or two just to realize, like, he's really our teammate now. He's not the guy in the video game. He's not the guy they see in the Nike commercials. He's not the guy that they see all over the place with a celebrity. He's a real person trying to help the New York Jets win a football game. And it was hard for a lot of the guys in the locker room after a week or two, to realize that. It took Michael Vick, kind of what Aaron Rodgers has done, is to come to them, to have lunch with them, to walk around practice and to hang around after practice with them. He had to break the mold. And I think that's what Aaron Rodgers has done. He's broken the mold, and the young guys in our locker room have pretty much brought in.
Former Steeler, former Jet, current Sirius XM host Willie Colon, our guest here on Hot Mic. You mentioned the media in New York City. I laughed when people would say, man, Aaron Rodgers is going to get eaten alive by that New York media. And I'm thinking Aaron Rodgers has been covered nationally throughout his entire career. I don't think the New York media is going to be what breaks him down. But you've been there. You've been a part of that media circus with the Jets. If you can, Willie, kind of compare and contrast being on the Pittsburgh Steelers for so long and the way that team is covered versus the way you were covered as a New York Jet.
Well, as a Pittsburgh Steeler, we won a lot of games, and anything that happened away from the Steeler locker room that maybe too risky was pretty much slapped off the table. The Rooneys had a great control of the image of what was to be portrayed by us. And on top of that, we knew better. And on top of that, the city helped us kind of be young men and responsible young men. And I think it was Mike Tomlin who really in that locker room flat out said, don't be the guy. Don't be the guy that's going to put your name or this team or your family at jeopardy of being in a situation they can't get out of. So it was always kind of on loop as a ball player in Pittsburgh that, listen, there's work to be done. There's a standard. If you don't want to be part of that standard, you're not going to be there. And the media, for the most part, being a small city, those guys really didn't look to get us. I didn't feel like they would look to, at least me, that's how I felt. They didn't look like it didn't seem like they had an aim to kind of pick at you or kind of break you down. And New York's different. It's a different animal, man. They go to bed with you and they wake up with you. So whatever you did in the street, they're going to find out about it. They're going to find out who you with, what you ate, and what car you drove in. So they're all in here. And the players here, for the most part, it's hard, especially if you come from a small town, or if you come from a small market, or you're just not used to the big city lights. It can be challenging. And I tell a lot of guys, especially in the New York market, man, just be careful. Not that you have to run away from the media. Don't give the media that power. Don't let them be the so to speak, the villain. They're projected as a villain. They live up for that. But if it's for you, the ball player, just to be on your P's and Q's and understand that somebody's always watching, whether you're in the building or out of the building, and just be a professional and treat people with respect and go about your business.
Willie Colon, our guest. Willie, we've got about a minute left, but you know firsthand from the 2010 season, Big Ben is suspended, and the backup role at the quarterback position and how that played into that run. There are a lot of backup jobs up for grabs right now in the preseason. What would you be watching for with the storylines, headlines out there, with the backups eyeing for a backup role that could ultimately make or break a season for a team?
I try to tell everybody your number 2 quarterback is just as important as your number 1 because this is an injury-driven league, right? And guys go down left and right. Look at Joe Burrow dealing with a calf, right? Everybody's looking at him trying to say when he's going to come back. Your number 2 quarterback has to be on par, just as close to the offensive line, knows his job just as well as the number 1. So for me, I look at Zach Wilson, to be honest with you. I'm going, and I know I'm kind of being a homer here, but this is a guy who went through a lot in his first 2 or 3 seasons with the Jets. Now he has Aaron Rodgers, and you tell by Hard Knocks, he's forced to learn. He's hearing verbiage, and he's seeing things that maybe he didn't see or wasn't taught to see. Now he gets to sit back and watch Aaron Rodgers go about his business. But there's a chance, believe it or not, I know it's hard to say, Aaron Rodgers may get hurt, right? It's football.
No
what
doubt.
are you going to do? That number 2 has to be ready. All hands are on deck for this New York Jets team. This defense is really good. This offensive line is coming along. They have a lot of pieces on the outside. The one thing that hold this team back is the quarterback position. So if you're Zach Wilson, there's no room for you to say, Aaron has it, let him do what he's going to do. He promised a Super Bowl, let's go win a Super Bowl. He has to work just as hard, get in the building just as early as Aaron does and prepare because his number may be called at any given moment.
Willie, this has been great, man. Let's do this again soon and catch up once things get rolling in September. Appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Stop talking to Ramon.
Will do. Thanks,
Willie Colon has been our guest. Check him out on SiriusXM. Coming up, Trev Alberts, the AD at Nebraska, with a bold prediction about the future of college sports.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he did
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Charlie Arnault will join us in about 40 minutes from right now. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network, which includes our YouTube page. Hope you'll subscribe while you're there and support the great radio partner that you may be listening to. Chad, coming up, we'll get into Lane Kiffin and opportunities for coaches, minority coaches coming up through the ranks. That's in about 20 minutes from right now. The AD at the school you know very well, Nebraska, Trev Alberts, is having a bold prediction, and I think it's also favorable to anyone that's been keeping up with realignment and expansion, saying that unless you're a conference that embraces change, you're going under. I'm paraphrasing a bit here with what he said, but I don't disagree with the quote where he says
history has not been kind, right?
To those that have not had the courage to expand. I don't believe it's done. It's never been done, talking about conference expansion. It's more likely than not that there will be continued periods of angst. I believe that the next go-around, that's my basic conclusion, there will be far more disruptive than anything we're currently engaged in. We need to prepare ourselves mentally for that. According to, from Alberts to the Lincoln Journal-Star, discussing things for the upcoming season for Nebraska, but also what's on the horizon for Nebraska, because certainly they have great interest in what's happening on the college football landscape and beyond. This seems obvious. He's alluding to the Super Conference, is he not? And something we'll dive into a bit further tomorrow.
Yeah, and I know David Hookstead, who wrote the story at OutKick, made the immediate correlation to the ACC, which is understandable because they're the only one that's not either being raided or adding, right? Pac-12 is no more because they got raided. Big 12 adding, Big 10 added, SEC staying put for now, but added Oklahoma and Texas recently. But that's not to say that the ACC wouldn't add if there was a value add proposition.
Well, they've tried.
They've tried and they can't. I mean, I think everyone would if they could lure someone in worth it.
But those who voted.
But what you don't want to do also is just add for the sake of adding, because then your current schools are thinking, well, they're not offering enough value to give us more money down the line, so why would we give up part of our share to someone else that doesn't do that? So I agree with Trev Alberts, Hutton, but there's really only two conferences right now in a position to truly add some big-time brands. That's Big 10 and SEC. Even though Big 12 has done it, they did it because the Pac-12 was a wounded animal, and they just went about delivering the kill shot.
Yeah.
And adding those that were already wanting out anyways. It's not like they can go and get Notre Dame.
But the thing about the ACC, like what Alberts is saying is, if for those who lack courage to expand, all but 4 schools, 4 programs voted in favor of adding Cal and Stanford. And 2 of the 4 that voted no were Clemson and Florida State. So, those who want more from the media share don't want to add teams if it's going to bring the profits down because you're spreading it out more. NC State, North Carolina were the other two. But, there was a push for Notre Dame to try to get Cal and Stanford, and those were the 4 reported schools who said no. So they're in a different category because they're trying to do it, but they also have the dissension with programs that are likely on the move if they could be on the move right now, right? Like Clemson and Florida State lead that list for the Big Ten or the SEC now.
I don't like Trev Alberts using the word courage to describe what's going on here. Those who lack the courage to expand. This has nothing to do with courage. It's about opportunity and money. And those are the ones that add because they're taking advantage of an opportunity and they're offering a lot of money because they're in a position to make a lot of money. Not that it's the wrong thing to do, but it's less about courage and more about opportunity. So what he's saying is right, but that's not to say the ACC would not add some big-time brands if they were in a position to do so.
Yeah.
But the only 2 conferences people are sprinting towards right now are Big Ten and SEC. So if you don't have an invite or an opportunity there, you're probably staying put or joining the Big 12 out of necessity, the way we saw Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado end up doing.
The bad thing, though, about the ACC is when they have these votes, if you think about the votes that were made in the Big Ten or the SEC, even Texas A&M, when it came time to vote, voted the way of expansion. And you now have a situation where you have at least 4 schools that are voting no. Reported they needed 12 of the 15 in order to make it official that Cal and Stanford could join. They can't have the consensus. They can't even have the near consensus, which is necessary. That's the big difference with the ACC compared to the other Power 4 right now, is when these votes are held, by and large, it's a unanimous across-the-board yes before they even called a vote. And in this case, it was not. That's where it's really going to come back to bite them because no one can agree on anything based on the money distribution.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were only voting on them as full members in all sports. I did not read a report about what I had mentioned, which would be the better solution, football only. They didn't do that.
I believe you're
right.
They
voted all sports. So I get it. I get it if you're the ACC and you're thinking, if the football only thing, smaller share, and then they could go join another conference in every other sport, have a share of that conference also, then I'd be willing to play ball. But a full share for every sport and the travel associated with it, I can understand not necessarily wanting that. I was hoping this was going to start a trend, that they would join in football only, and then we'd see other decisions for regionality purposes, rivalry purposes, whatever, where you would have more football only type decisions with only the football program joining certain conferences.
And it's also interesting to note NC State and North Carolina voting together within that conference as the statewide programs. That just keep an eye on that. Chad, speaking of the Pac-12, though, maybe Stanford and Cal did not lean into that idea, only because they've now, along with Oregon State and Washington State, the 4 that remain, they've hired Oliver Luck as a consultant to the conference. They're trying every last-ditch effort to stay relevant and stay alive as part of the Power 5. And Oliver Luck has a background in so many different areas, pro sports, consulting in different companies. Of course, the tie to Stanford with his son, Andrew. This is an interesting move as he is going to be the negotiator behind the scenes, it seems, bringing other schools to the Pac-12 instead of the Pac-12 dissolving with the remaining 4 joining a different conference. They want schools like SMU, Tulane, and others to come to them in order to stay afloat. I still shake my head at it.
It's survival.
Yeah,
there's nothing. There's no thriving in the Pac-12. It's all about survival.
They needed Luck in the mix well before now.
Well, speaking of survival, what's George Kliavkoff doing right now? Negotiating his buyout?
Well, so that's.
I mean, he has been silent. And look, I don't think anybody wants to hear from him. He is the commissioner behind the downfall of a proud 108-year-old conference. But they're hiring Oliver Luck. No word from Kliavkoff. He's not in on conference calls anymore?
Well, I mean, every news tidbit that comes out about the conference is awful for him. Even the one through Front Office Sports, where the Pac-12 reportedly rejected from ESPN a $30 million per school annual offer back in 2022.
By the way, those were the school presidents, though. He presented that deal to them, and they voted it out. But not him.
He's the one that's he's the one
that's in charge of trying to sell it to
the
them.
table.
Yeah,
and you don't bring it to the table unless it's a deal that is going to pass. If you're a conference commissioner, the best ones don't do that.
Or you're good enough at selling it to everyone and telling them that. But my guess is they said, this looks okay, but can you get better? And he said, yes, we can do better. And when he did worse, that's when everyone left.
They countered with $50 million instead of 30.
Yeah, 30 to 50 is a big leap.
Yes. And then, that's a bit more than whatever Apple was offering, which is what, 25 was the minimum, 23, the floor of this
I think,
offer that was there but it no longer is.
Look, I think school president, again, it was the school presidents, to be technical, that voted no and to counter with 50 on the ESPN offer. But when you have a good, strong commissioner, those school presidents just listen to what they say and they sign off on what they do.
But the commissioner also listens to the presidents, though. Like, think about
It's back and forth, but I'm saying in a media deal,
look at it from
if
your
you trust your commissioner, you go to them and they say, all right, George, shoot us straight here. What do you think? And if George says, given the current landscape, we're not doing any better than this 30, then they probably would have signed off on it. I don't think he said that. I think he said we can do better. And he failed.
And the chase of revenue, for sure.
Yeah.
But also consider, like, from your mark, even from the expansion, it has been widely reported and no denial that your mark is in love with UConn. They just added 4 schools, and UConn wasn't even brought up in terms of the media reporting and coverage of this. It was straight Pac-12. Your mark knew what was going to pass and what wouldn't. He knew what he needed to present and how much of a struggle that would be, or at least assume that the other programs are voted straight through. And he looks like, the king currently of the non-Big Ten SEC commissioners. And it's because what he presented and what he sold was one that he knew would be favorable to every position in the Big 12. Meanwhile, Kliavkoff is doing the opposite of that in what feels like a weekly basis, regardless of what branch of the tree we're trying to discuss, whether it's a media deal, expansion. The whole San Diego State thing was a debacle. How they didn't see Colorado bouncing, or any of the others for that matter, after seeing what USC and UCLA did. I mean, if Colorado's leaving, Oregon is, Washington is. There was just no foresight there.
Well,
or at least that's the perception, and perception is reality.
Well, because of that, George Kliavkoff is apparently in witness relocation program right now.
Well, but
we haven't seen or heard from him. All we know from the Pac-12 is they've hired Oliver Luck,
their future commissioner,
to do his bidding for him now.
If they stay alive, their future commissioner.
While the commissioner is still technically employed.
Yeah. Maybe they can't afford the buyout.
Well, again, I think there's probably lawyers at play here that are negotiating something for him to leave.
What are the other schools that they're mentioning? I saw where it is Tulane and SMU. It's not the full Mountain West list that was assumed.
Boise State.
Boise's from
San Diego State. Tulane.
Yes.
Was Wyoming a part of it? I don't think so.
I don't recall seeing their name.
Yeah, I remember. I'm trying to remember how New Mexico.
That sounds
I think it was
right.
one, because I remember just looking at the logos, like a list of here's your new Pac-12 if they had their way of what they could get, and it was New Mexico, San Diego State,
Rice,
Boise State, Rice,
and Fresno.
There you go. And Rice would give them a sizable market in Houston, but what portion of the Houston market does Rice really command? Not a big.
So this from, let's see who wrote this. Stuart Mando. If the Pac-4 stays put, expands, here's a potential lineup on the field in academics. Stanford, Cal, Oregon State. We've got Washington State, San Diego State, Boise, Fresno, SMU, Tulane, and Rice. Probably around $10 million a year for TV rights. But it gets the 5th college football playoff spot at birth at most years. No East Coast travel. And then you wait on 2025 for the Mountain West schools to have the media rights deal up. That's when their previous contract ends, and then you can pick and choose who you would like, just like the Big 12 did to the Pac-12. That's much easier said than done. That's not even a life raft. You're just trying to keep the legs churning out in the middle of the ocean at this point, keep your head above water. There have been worse ideas, and their commissioners brought them to the table already. This one can at least survive, considering, too, that we don't have guidelines for the if there's not a autonomous 5 for the college football playoff automatic qualifiers and berth into what we're going to see over the next 2 years, not this year, but moving forward. And that's where you get the money split, where each Power 5 conference gets $80 million over those 2 seasons whenever we expand to 12 in the college football playoff. That is essential to trying to keep the Pac-12 somewhat relevant over the next couple of seasons while they wait on that money, if they can do it.
Well, who's going to not be keeping them essential? George Kliavkoff. It'll be Oliver Luck doing that.
And if Oliver Luck pulls this off.
I think it's funny that he's still technically employed, that no one's even talking about the elephant in the room, that he's got to be out.
Lane Kiffin wants minority coaches to have more opportunities. Lane Kiffin was given a great opportunity, too. We hit that first coming up on Hot Mic.
Two biggest social media giants, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are set to battle it out, and I'm here on Broadway asking people who they put their money on. Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, they're going to fight each other. Who do you think's going to win?
I think Mark's got him.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a man.
Okay, and Elon Musk isn't?
Oh, well, of course, he's got money.
Okay.
He's got money. Money, well, money's money.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg in a fight?
I don't know. I'm going to go with Musk.
Why?
It just seems like he's a little bit younger, a little bit smarter.
You just got a good feeling about him?
Yeah, I got a good feeling.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Musk.
Why?
He trains. That guy's going to beat his
But Mark Zuckerberg is actually training jiu-jitsu for 9 months.
Not happening. Elon Musk all day. Elon Musk.
Why do you think?
He has no soul. I think he's definitely just going to no holds barred.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I feel like he's stronger and smarter.
Oh, Elon Musk.
All the way? Why?
All the way. He's an animal. Think about it.
Mark Zuckerberg's been training for 9 months jiu-jitsu. You think Elon Musk can take him?
Yeah, I think he could take him.
Elon, that oh God, stop playing with Elon. Elon really do this out here, for real.
I hope Elon
Really? Why do you think so?
got better ideas.
Zuckerberg's like 5'7", 155. Musk is 6'1", 190. But Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, who's going to win in a fight?
Oh, Elon Musk. No doubt.
Why do you think so?
He's the GOAT. I've been seeing all the Twitter handles and all the talk, and I'm on Elon Musk's side. I'm ready for them to get in the WWE ring and then come off the top rope. That's what I want to see. I want to see a people's elbow to Mark Zuckerberg.
If one was more likely to be a lizard or a robot, who would it be?
Elon. Elon.
Okay.
I think Mark Zuckerberg will win.
Why do you think that?
Because I think he already trains MMA. So he's got like the prior experience and stuff. I mean, they're both billionaires, so they have the opportunity to get the best training. But I think Mark Zuckerberg will pull away with the win.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think so?
Because he's bigger.
Bigger, okay, but Mark Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Do you think that matters?
No.
Zuckerberg, he's part alien or robot, so he may have some secret powers that we don't know about.
I was going to say, is that an advantage? Does he have an advantage over Elon Musk then?
Yeah, I mean, if he, sheds his skin and becomes an alien and eats everyone, yeah, I think so.
Elon Musk is mental, so Elon Musk.
All it is just he's mental. He's mentally crazy, so.
He just wouldn't care, would he?
Okay.
He'd just absolutely go for it. I think Zuckerberg would be a bit more refrained.
Okay.
If that should ever happen, which I doubt, but you never know, it'd be entertaining.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Elon Musk.
Why?
Because my dad is in love with Elon Musk.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go with Zuckerberg. I mean, Threads just came out, so.
Who do you think would win?
Zuck.
Why do you think so?
Because he's not a real human, he's a robot.
So he'll use that to his advantage?
Yeah, and all the Krav Maga stuff, too, yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think would win in a fight, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Why do you think Elon Musk?
I think Elon's
He
smarter.
works with robots, so maybe he built a robot to fight for him.
But what if Mark Zuckerberg is a robot?
Oh wow. Then I might have to change my answer.
Who do you think's gonna win?
Me.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mic with Hutton and with Rowe. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network. It includes the YouTube page where you can search out OutKick. We stream live each and every day starting at 3 o'clock Eastern. Catch all the shows, clips, and more on demand through the OutKick channel on YouTube. Hope you'll subscribe. Join Chad in the chat. Help him out with Royce.
Royce
who's blowing it
was
up.
upset that I said I was going to knock him out of the chat. And not really, though. I said, Royce, I'm joking. I don't even, first off, I don't know how to. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't know how to kick someone out of the chat permanently. But Royce, to his credit, said, oh, cool. I'm glad I'm not kicked out. And then, you know what he did? He cooled his jets. There's been less
Slow
Royce.
the roll. Slow the roll.
Less Royce now in the chat. And someone right after that reminded everyone, please smash that like button at any and all times.
We appreciate that. Charlie Arnott will join us in 20 minutes from OutKick. Looking forward to that. Chad, over the weekend we saw where Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Titans, handed things over as the head coach in the preseason game to Terrell Williams. His defensive line coach and assistant head coach took over all things head coaching duties as soon as the Titans flew on Friday to Chicago and all the way through the game day operations on Saturday through press conferences and more as the acting head coach. To get the experience, but also get his name out there in order to potentially get some job opportunities and be a head coaching candidate. From the college level, we're seeing that with Lane Kiffin, who Derek Nix, who has been with Ole Miss for many different regimes, upwards of 20 years now, remains on the staff. He's the assistant head coach. He's a wide receivers coach. And Kiffin handed the whistle to him during, I believe, the Rebels' first full game-like scrimmage. And after that, pointed out the lack of diversity from SEC and Big 12 programs across the board as far as minority coaches go. What did you make of that, and what do you make of Kiffin bringing this to the forefront?
Well, I mean, he's not wrong. It is an overwhelming number of white head coaches in a sport that is not majority white players.
Yeah, all 28 jobs are...
And he's talking specifically Big 12
and
SEC.
SEC, yeah, all 28 jobs.
So there is a disconnect there, right? A big part of the problem, as I try to not sneeze into the microphone right now, a big part of the problem.
I know where you're going with this. If you need
is
to sneeze.
that I think I got it.
Okay.
My eyes are watering, but I think I've held it in properly. Nepotism. Why are there so many white head coaches? Well, I mean, we could get into a lot of societal issues and dive into that further. But one big part of the problem is there's a lot of nepotism in football coaching. It's just reality. People hire who they know, but also they tend to go in a direction of, I'm going to hire this person because I knew their dad. And their dad did it at a high level for a long time. And you know who someone like that is? Lane Kiffin.
Right.
Lane Kiffin does not get near the opportunities at the age he got them, if not for Monty Kiffin being his father. It's just reality. Has Lane Kiffin done a good job in his third and fourth opportunities and fifth opportunity? Yes. If Lane Kiffin were a black guy that didn't have the last name Kiffin, when he gets fired from the Raiders, he doesn't get the head coaching job at Tennessee. I just don't think that he does. When he leaves Tennessee the way that he did, and then he goes to USC, and he gets fired at USC, he's probably not getting other head coaching gigs after that. But Kiffin's name helped him, Hutton.
Yeah, and I'm looking through and just jotting down sons of coaches across the NFL, right? Kyle Shanahan, great coach, son of Mike Shanahan, and was on the staffs there. Turns out to be one of the better offensive minds in the NFL and is a quarterback whisperer. You also have Nathaniel Hackett, son of Paul Hackett, who, you've got certainly the connection there. There are many others, but you're right. I mean, the ascension up the ladder is a fast one if you pair up and you have success with your father's organization, right? If your dad is the coach of a awful team, chances are you're not going to be on that staff very long because you want to separate, right? You don't want to be attached to what goes under. So there's the give and take there, but the successful coaches who have also brought their sons along through the ranks, I mean, a lot of those guys climb the ladder extremely fast compared to those that do the grunt work for a long time. And a long time would certainly be 2 decades at Ole Miss for Derek Nix.
Well, and look, it's not this is true in so many professions.
Oh,
there
yeah.
are so many professions ripe with nepotism, and it's not about the best person available. It's about whose uncle you have or whose cousin you are or who you know in that job. If you are working in a profession right now that your dad or your mom worked in and you got opportunities at an early age for that, it's nepotism. There are plenty of announcers and sports broadcasters that have this. My parents didn't work in broadcasting, so I'm a first-generation sports broadcaster. If my daughters get into it and I can open a door for them, I will. And guess what that is? Nepotism.
Connection.
So, look, I'm not saying this to just rain on Lane Kiffin's parade. He's done a good job at Ole Miss. He's a good offensive coach. We can debate how great of a head coach he is and if he should have gotten as many opportunities as he's received as a head coach. But it is rich coming from Lane Kiffin, who got an opportunity at 32 years old, 32 or 31, as the Raiders head coach in the NFL. Why? Because of who his dad is. That's the biggest reason.
Yeah, not having a ton of success through the college ranks either, but having the offensive coordinator background too, with his father being Monty, the longtime Tampa 2 disciple and apostle with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chad, this weekend, NFL preseason reaction, it happens, the overreaction. Just keep in mind, try not to overreact to 2, 3, 4 series, especially at the quarterback position, where C.J. Stroud is behind a backup offensive line. Anthony Richardson is assumed that he needs a year, but they're trying to pick the pace and just fast forward a year in Indy. Will Levis is in a backup battle with Malik Willis with the Titans. And you've got Bryce Young, who is small in stature to begin with, behind what looks to be a bad Panthers offensive line where he's going to get crushed. I say looks to be because, well, we're analyzing these snaps, in C.J. Stroud's case, 2 series. We're looking at a stat line. None of these guys looked great, except for Stetson Bennett, which is also one to raise an eyebrow with out in L.A. with McVay. But point being, I mean, unless you have a history of something to grade against, for instance, Trey Lance, who has not looked good in San Francisco, don't rock the boat over 2 or 3 possessions where a guy doesn't complete enough passes yet. It is way too early to assume that one guy is going to be better than the other based on the preseason games not mattering much. Pay attention to the joint practices. That is where you really have coaches that collaborate before the joint practices, and it's ones versus ones. It's good versus good. And right now, we're lucky as a football fan to tune into a preseason game and not, and see a couple of starters that we'll see on the second week of September. Because right now, it's bare bones on who's playing and who's not. You want the rookie quarterbacks to play and get some reps, but they're not playing with the guys, by and large, that they're going to be playing with on game day in September. Try to keep that in perspective instead of overreacting to a stat line.
Well, this is where the interest of the NFL hurts the coverage of the NFL. because everyone is so into it that everyone overreacts to anything preseason because you're so starved for it.
And
so it naturally
there have been some
leads to
great plays.
overreaction.
Great plays. We mentioned Stetson Bennett, who looked pretty good. But we're talking about a backup role there and a situation where the rookies who are drafted high should be starters, but in some cases they either don't have to be based on the quarterback in front of them, or they're with an organization that's speeding up the process, like we're seeing with the Colts and Richardson, while they try to get their run game going, because Jonathan Taylor is back at the facility after leaving Indy, leaving camp to go rehab his ankle on his own. He's still on PUP. The status remains the same. He still wants a new contract. All of that remains. But he's back with the Colts, and that's better than him being away from the franchise, away from the front office that could potentially work out a deal the same way the Giants worked out extra money or more money up front for Saquon Barkley. They need Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. Taylor is following, in a weird way, Chad, I can't help but read into it, what J.C. Tretter, the president of the NFLPA, he threw out there with Ross Tucker on Tucker's podcast, what are guys going to do? Like, just fake an injury? I'm paraphrasing. But Taylor has maintained he is not going to play until he is 100%. Keep that in mind. For a guy that had ankle surgery that should be back and said he was going to be able to go and be healthy in June at minicamp for training camp, is now saying, I'm not playing until I'm 100%. He may be falling into that line of thinking, and that is detrimental if he does.
Yeah, it feels like Scottie Pippen in the last days.
Why would you sign a player that does that?
Yeah.
If you're another team, why would you trade for a player that does that?
He's only hurting himself, but this is where pride gets in the way. And he's trying to make a stand now, and he's being prideful about it, and I understand some of that, but this is not going to help him long term. But also, what is long term for these guys? Who do we have on last week who was saying, I don't know that if they go out and have a great year, they're going to get rewarded for it.
Andrew Brandt.
Andrew Brandt said that.
Yeah,
so I don't know what to tell them. Doesn't mean they're going to get a great contract after that.
Exactly. Does it help Jonathan Taylor to have a 2,000-yard season? Probably not. From Andrew Brandt's perspective, he didn't put the 2,000 marker on there, but probably not, because the team can just franchise tag you, and it's far less money than whatever extension it would cost the Colts against the cap. They have the money. They just don't want to invest it in the backfield. Not many teams do, and that's what they're faced with. Faking an injury is detrimental for Jonathan Taylor, not with the Colts. I mean, yes, with the Colts, but it's already bad blood. I'm just saying, if he wants to be traded to another organization and get a contract worked out, why would you even have that out there? Maybe his ankle is, he's got something else going on that happened in between the surgery in January and camp, or mini camp and then camp. Maybe. But the Colts haven't put that out. In fact, they were, according to reports, contemplating putting him on the non-football injury list with his back. That's how crazy it's been received. Chad, the ESPN partnership now with Penn Entertainment has brought up some of the ethical questions about broadcast journalism and wagering. And with the ESPN Bet app, which is going to be what Barstool Sportsbook is or was, they're just going to flip it into ESPN Bet through Penn. They have said that through ESPN that they are the network's insiders. I'm specifically thinking Schefter, Woj. Those guys are going to be kept far away from the gambling programs like Daily Wager, for instance. And they're going to continue at ESPN the, quote, high standard of journalistic integrity, end quote. This, to me, is no different than the window dressing of what the NFL is trying to have us all believe, that they are protecting the integrity of the sport and the game, when really it's just optics. They want to put this out there on the front end to make us all believe that everything's on the up and up, when really everyone's in on the take. And if you have Schefter and Woj, which drops all kinds of news, breaking news, how can you not assume that they could change a line, that they could change a spread, or impact the betting public that is looking up any last-minute tidbits on a said player or said team based on an injury status, especially at the quarterback spot on a player who's questionable. And we don't know until an hour and a half before game time when the actives come out who's playing and who's not.
Well, it's why it's good to have a separation of church and state at times.
And they do in this deal.
Everything is a conglomerate. Everything has their hands in all pots at all times, and they're grabbing the gold however they can. So ESPN doing this is not a big surprise to me, and the fact that it's going to create some conflicts of interest and move betting lines and having your insiders having all this information and knowing how to release it, when to release it or not to release it based on how it's going to impact your own sports book you now own and operate with someone else or you're affiliated with, of course it's going to lead to problems. But this is where we are now. Everything is a conflict of interest. When the NFL is suspending guys for the amount of games they are, but they're partnering with sports books and they're putting sports books in stadiums moving forward. You see the problems with that.
Yes.
We've all seen it, but it's not going anywhere. States aren't taking away the right to bet online on sports. They're adding as we go along. It's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, because there's a ton of profit in that. And think about the power based on a tweet or a post from Schefter or Woj or Jeff Passan. And knowing how it's going to impact what ESPN is going to do and what Penn Entertainment now has the authority to do based on the app that is partnered with the network. I mean, this isn't new. This is certainly things that they could have been concerned with FanDuel and DraftKings, who practically own the market and paid a ton across the board to many networks here. But it's interesting to see how they play it PR-wise versus what they're negotiating in a $2 billion deal, where Penn Entertainment apparently in negotiations with ESPN, the offer that was first out there was $4 billion from the four-letter network. They still end up paying up over a 10-year period from Penn Entertainment to have the rights, but it's separate. It's a partnership, not a merger. Charlie Arnault joins us next from OutKick here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
Do you feel as if, well, I'm pretty certain I know your answer because I know how I felt in college. I had to take, my major was actually chemistry at first as well, and I had to take a lot of ethics courses and different, I actually took a gender study course as well. And I felt like I had to tailor my papers a certain way to get a good grade. And what I'm noticing is across the country, that's the consensus. Even in the South, like where I went, University of Kentucky, we felt this way. And so I entirely agree with you that this is, it's happening all over. About the backlash, how I mentioned, she came out and essentially used the argument of your argument was based in white supremacy. Have you gotten a lot of backlash, or do you just kind of get the name calling, such as being called a racist for saying freedom of speech should exist?
Isn't that crazy to be called a racist? Calling out being suppressed in school. It's so weird to see where people's heads are at. But yeah, there has been a lot of backlash, a lot of name calling, obviously. And the death threats or I'm going to show up at your house. I'm like, okay, please do.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of that. And I haven't had a ton of questioning of what I'm saying because they actually have no objection to what I'm saying. They're just like, you're transphobic. And I'm like, okay, but you have no real argument. That says a lot more about you than me. And it says that my argument is real and I actually am saying the truth and you can't even argue against that. So you're just going to call me a name.
And I love that you can acknowledge that, because this cancel culture that we live in, they want you to think you'll be canceled. They want you to be scared of the name calling. But that really is all it is. And it speaks more to their insecurities than it does to yours. I saw people on TikTok, Olivia. I saw people coming for your eyebrows. Is that what they're going to resort to? And you're right. It's because they can't dissuade from your argument, which is actually really powerful. And it should boost your confidence. I think when people can look at a situation and take the negative, such as the backlash you're getting, which does suck. There's no taking away from that. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It does take a toll on you. But if you can take that backlash you're getting and ultimately use it to fuel your argument, I wish more people had that same perspective that you have. But what about the positive? Have you received a lot of good feedback? Have you had a lot of doors being open for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the opportunities that I have had are just absolutely incredible. And the support from people like you and all these other speakers who've spoken up about, men in their sports. And the ones that really stick out to me are actually the parents of young girls who are messaging me and saying, I have 2 daughters who are running cross country just like you did. Thank you so much for protecting them. Thank you so much for sticking up for them in their futures. And I'm like, that's why I'm doing this. It's not really for me, it's for all of these other girls, and not even just girls, but for college students, for young men, like all of these people. I want to help them. I mean, America was built on freedom of speech. That's why we are what we are. And colleges are now trying to take that away. And like we said earlier, it's going down a bad path.
Olivia, you sound like you're filled with hate. You sound just super hateful. No, how could anyone listen to your argument and say that that's hateful? I mean, I hear the compassion coming from your voice, advocating for what you're advocating for. It really is for everyone, all ages, all sexual orientations, even all gender identities. That's who you're advocating for, to be able to speak freely.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow, and very special guest Charlie Arnold from OutKick, who joins us weekly at this time. Charlie, good to see you. Hope the weekend went well.
Hello, guys. Yeah, the weekend was fantastic. I'm trying to think what I did. Oh, yes. I was in town in New York City for the very first time since mid-June, so it was fantastic. It was nice to finally be home for once.
Nice. A nice quiet weekend sometimes you need. Even if you're in the loudest city in the world, one of them, it can happen.
Chad's weekend nearly started off in disaster, and that helps us with the judge's ruling today.
Yeah, let's get right into this, Charlie, because I want you to rule on the following. So I leave the facility here, our studio, on Friday, walk out to my car. I'm going to rush to my daughter's first softball practice for fall ball, that I'm the head coach of this team. I walk to my car, and there's a boot on my car where it has been locked in place. I am a paying subscriber to this parking lot. I'm currently in a loaner vehicle from a car dealership because my car is in the shop. I registered this loaner vehicle as one of my cars, but apparently they didn't get the memo, and they had a third-party booting service, towing service, booting cars, in the lot on Friday. So I was in such a hurry, I called the guy, and he was right there. So he got it off for $75. I would have probably said a lot of things to him had I not been in such a hurry, and I was just thrilled to pay the $75 so I could get to practice on time. But here's my question to you. What is appropriate when getting into it with someone or going off on them and telling them your problems when they're not the root of the problem? It's just a lower level employee that is paid to be there putting boots on cars by a parking lot service that's a mega company. Fair or foul if I go off on this person?
It's foul because it's not their fault. They're just kind of like the intermediary, like you just mentioned. But I have so many examples of where I've been so frustrated, like customer service type of scenarios where something has happened, whether it's like, you can't access your credit card, or you are charged for something that you shouldn't have been, or whatever the case. Let's say one of your utilities was turned off incorrectly, whatever the case is. You call, you're extremely frustrated, but it's not the person that answered the phone's fault. But obviously you're calling in like a very heated moment. And your first reflex is to just start spilling all of these emotions onto that person. But I think it's always important. I always preface, I'm like, listen, I know it's not your fault. I am just extremely frustrated. And usually they're like, I would be too. But I always preface, I'm like, just in case I say something that comes across as maybe a little rude or out of character or, not appropriate. I just let them know. I'm like, listen, I know it's not your fault. I'm just super frustrated right now. And I just want to get this figured out. But yeah, you can't go off on those people. It's not their fault. And especially like, you know what, another really great example of this is at a restaurant when your order is wrong. I mean, there are some situations when it was the server who may have placed the order incorrectly, but a lot of times the kitchen staff or whomever just messes it up. Like you ask for a cheeseburger and they forget to put the cheese. It's not the server's fault that they made a mistake. So I think in those situations, it's also important just to be mindful. And usually the server is super apologetic and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So keep your cool. My best advice.
You're right. And that's well said, that answer. Now, I will say, if the attitude is bad when they come by, it may be a different story with me. But this guy's attitude was great. He's like, but he did, the one thing I did say, one little line I got in, he said, when I called him, he said, yeah, I'm actually pulling back in there. I'll pull right in there and find you. And he got out of the car, and I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of in a hurry trying to get the price. He said, man, you're really lucky that I happen to be right in the lot. And I said, well, not as lucky as if you didn't put the boot on my car. But outside of that, yeah, I'm pretty lucky. And then I told him what was going on, and he kind of laughed. And then he said, so you owe $180 in tickets. And I said, yeah, I'm not paying any of that. I'm going to call the lot because I am a subscribed member here. And he was cool. He said, oh, absolutely, yeah, get with them. You just have to pay me the $75 now to get going, which I paid happily just to get on my way. But Hutton, I agree with Charlie on this one. Weigh in. I think it's out of line to get on to the lower level employee that probably has, well, not probably, has nothing to do with the situation.
Yeah, and it's they're also in that role. It's a weird deal. Like some of them are great at handling a very stressful situation, like an airline cancellation, for instance. Like, the person on the other end of the phone or at the airport is going to hear an earful, not just from any one individual, but an entire flight.
You just made me think of the viral crazy plane lady.
Yes. I mean, it's just that some people thrive in that. Some people don't. I couldn't do it. It's like you mentioned serving. I did it for 1 month at a restaurant and threw in the towel and said, I can't do this. I'm off to do something else instead of working at this restaurant.
Now, Charlie,
service in hospitality is very tough and it requires a certain type of person. Like you, I am also not that person. So,
especially Sunday lunch.
This is the rare one we all agree on. It's not okay to go after that person.
Yeah.
I will preface by saying I know that to be the case, but if there is a damn boot on my car when I leave today, when the show is over, all bets are off because that is when I tell the company to remove it with no charge. And I go into my emails and say, here is my correspondence with the parking lot ownership group all weekend, by the way, that I went through to get the tickets erased because they shouldn't be on there. And here is my correspondence with your parent company to give me the $75 back from Friday. So you will remove it now for no charge, and then we won't have a problem. That will happen if it happens today.
Are you going to ask for them to reimburse you for the $75?
I've already asked it. Yes.
Okay, I was going to say
I've not received a response, but I went through like the online complaint department where you send an email somewhere and tell them your complaint.
He's chatting with AI right now.
Yeah, I'm chatting with someone in Mumbai right now online.
Very
so
productive.
we'll see if that happens or not.
Charlie Arnold, our guest, very special guest here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Who do I complain to and vent to based on this Musk and Zuckerberg fight not going to happen? Do I blame myself for even giving this a little attention?
No, I think you would blame Mark Zuckerberg because as far as I was concerned, because he said right now that he considers it off because he doesn't think Elon Musk is serious about it. And he's looking for, he takes the sport seriously. He wants a serious opponent. But didn't Elon Musk just say he spoke to like someone very high up in Italy? I recall that being the case and said that they planned an epic location. So that sounds to me like Elon Musk is taking it seriously. I also saw that Elon Musk is dealing with some type of neck injury that he was getting an MRI on. So if that were the case where his injury were to be too severe where he couldn't compete, might push back the date a little bit. But that to me does not say he's not serious about it, nor does he not want it to happen. So I think Mark Zuckerberg got a little scared. Maybe he saw what the, consensus was online as to who people wanted to see win. And maybe he just, was like, listen, I just actually realized that this isn't just a regular fight where if I lose, it's on to the next. Like, this is going to be something that probably sticks with me for a long time. So looks to me like Mark Zuckerberg maybe just got a little bit of cold feet. So if you want to blame someone, I would blame him, but hopefully it still happens. You never know.
Well,
I also think Musk is like he's more jokey about everything. You know, Zuckerberg doesn't have the best sense of humor.
No.
And at least Musk like tries to have a sense of humor about things, right? So we all know this, like your friend who's real serious about something, but you always joke with them about that thing they're very serious about. So then eventually the friend that's very serious gets mad. That to me was the text exchange. It's kind of like, dude, I do this every day. I am training seriously to beat you up in the ring, and you keep making jokes about it. And Musk is making jokes about everything. It's like, you're not serious, fights off, type thing. It's like that take my ball and go home moment from your friend who's way too serious about something.
Yeah, I could see that though, because I feel like also in relationships, like let's say, for example, you constantly get on your, significant other about something that they keep doing and you're frustrated and then they just keep making jokes about it. Eventually you would just be like, you know what? I'm done here. I have nothing left to say. Good luck to you.
Well,
so I could see the frustration if that actually is, the dynamic, how you're describing it.
Yeah. And from the perspective of both guys, like what do they have to gain in this? If they want to donate to charity, donate $1 billion each to charity. And you don't even have to fight for it.
Well, they want to give the people what they want.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is just something that, how did it come up in the first place? It was, I don't even recall. It was very random. I remember one day I think Elon tweeted about it first. He issued the challenge. But yeah, I think it got to the point where, Mark Zuckerberg does train and he is looking for probable opponents, I would imagine. So, and Elon here's the thing. I think Elon would train to the best of his abilities. I think we were talking about it last week where he has weights in his office because he doesn't actually have time to properly train. So he's kind of doing them while he's on phone calls and between little tasks here and there. But I don't think Elon at the end of the day would be so concerned about winning or losing. I think for him, it doesn't really seem like Elon takes himself all that seriously. I mean, he's an ultra intelligent man. He's got a lot going on. I highly doubt winning an MMA match against Mark Zuckerberg would be the end all be all or something that would cause him to go into hiding if things didn't go his way. I think he knows that any publicity in a lot of cases is good publicity. So I think that's kind of where he's coming from. But how ridiculous would it be if it actually did happen? I mean, what a 2023 moment that would be.
And I just think about it from, the perspective of you've got Rockefeller, battling Carnegie or, anyone from that era. And you're just thinking what that would have been like with the rivalries there compared to now. Where it's I think Zuckerberg even said just bring it to my backyard instead.
Yeah. Well, I love how Zuckerberg.
What would happen if they crossed each
Zuckerberg's
other?
Dana White has got us a great setup to do. I mean, he is. It feels like he's all in, but then he's like, well, this guy's not serious though, so I'm out. I'm backing out of it. And then Musk is like, oh, come on, man, let's go. Let's just spar a little bit. Let's keep it going.
Well, and you kept hearing the conflicting, on one hand you heard it was going to be at the Apex in Vegas and it was going to be sanctioned by UFC. And then on the other hand, you heard it wasn't going to be sanctioned by UFC and is going to be taking place at an epic location in Italy. So we have two very different tales being told here. Which one was the truth? I have no idea. But I would prefer it to be at the Roman Coliseum. I mean, that would be...
Well, you'd get to go. I mean, if I were you, I'd root for that also, right, Charlie? Because you'd get to go cover it in Italy. That's a free trip to Italy for you.
I would insist on covering it if this actually transpired. But as of right now, as we just heard, all up in the air, I guess.
So I want to get your take. Final thing here, final couple minutes. Charlie Arnault with us. So Jeffrey Loria, former owner of the Miami Marlins, for 15 years. Then he sold it to a group that includes Derek Jeter. He said in a recent interview with the Miami Herald that Jeter destroyed the ballpark and specifically points out this sculpture, if you want to call it that was in the outfield, the home run sculpture that Jeter got rid of. And when you see it, just your reaction to this, when he says, quote, destroying public art was a horrible thing to do. This goes back to my overall sentiment of who determines what is art and what isn't. We have some horrible things in Nashville that are supposedly art, quote unquote, that I think are eyesores. nothing is this bad, but the former owner apparently is sentimental about what looks like a kid's toy.
There is currently in Madison Square Park, which is in the Flatiron District in New York, there is like what looks like someone just TP'd the park. It looks like people like took silly string and it's been strung all over trees. And I was so confused because it's super ugly. Like it's like a complete eyesore. So there was a park employee the other day who was doing something, and I said, "Hey, when are they taking this down?" Because honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was something for Pride. It looked like something like very strange that was put up for Pride Parade. And I just assumed it was gonna come down soon after. And the employee was like, "Oh, this isn't coming down till December. This is for like, I don't know, like some medical benefit." I don't even know what she said, but I was like, wow, this is so ugly and we have to live with it till December. I mean, who makes these decisions? I have no idea. But if I come across a photo, or you know what, maybe I'll take a photo of it. And then next week I'll have it for you that you can put it up so people can see just how ugly it is.
The sculpture here with the stadium in Miami, it's so ugly that the artist told Loria that he didn't want to get involved in trying to get it back. So the quote is, he didn't want to get involved. Now it will rot outside where it is, condemned to neglect and outdoor decay. I mean, this sounds like a SNL skit. But again,
it might be worth even more now that Jeter is the one who destroyed it. Like, I feel like that added value to it. So
yeah.
Baseball fans, let's get the auction going.
I mean, you can do almost anything in the name of art, but it doesn't mean we have to respect it as art.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right? It's up once you put it into the world, it's up for the public to decide. It's now their gift that you've given to the world. They all decide what it is.
I'm a skeptic. If I see that in the outfield, and I'm told that is a sculpture of art, I'm thinking that is something used to launder money. Like that's it. You paid a price to launder and clean money, and that's
well in Miami that wouldn't be so out of the
not accusing
realm of possibility. So
this sculpture is the greatest thing that ever happened to the former Miami Marlins owner.
Charlie, thank you.
Charlie, thank you as always. We'll catch up next week.
Bye, guys.
Charlie Arnault there, OutKick. Always great with us. Very special guest coming up, Professor Payton. Or as
got a ring to it.
Eli calls it, I believe Easy E is what he tweeted. That's next.
Hey, Davey Hudson of OutKick here. We are at SEC Media Days 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to go talk to some players, see what they have to say. What's the best purchase you've made from an NIL deal so far?
Tag watch right here.
Far.
Best purchase? I probably just give it back to my son for real. That's probably my best purchase every time.
Man, pay my truck off. Definitely.
A house. My wife and I bought a house, so that's been huge. Being able to save that money up and buy a house.
This chain here.
The best purchase? I'd probably say helping my mom out with school.
Ooh, the best purchase? Probably the shoes. The shoes I got on right now.
The best purchase I made, well, the best NIL deal I've had is free steaks from Marksbury Farms, so keep me fed and beefed up.
With it.
Ooh, purchase? Probably a new golf bag. Or recently I played TPC Sawgrass this past weekend, and that was from I used that money from a deal I made, so that's up there too.
Probably getting my sister through college, helping my family out a lot. That's probably my best purchase I've done.
Best purchase? Probably my my mom and dad anniversary gift.
The best purchase I've made? I got a yoga mat the other day, and that's helped me a lot. Just flexibility and everything like that, so probably that.
Best purchase? My smile. Best purchase? I would say my best purchase was having my school supply drive.
Landon, what is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Remember the Titans for sure. Sport movie, I say Love and Basketball. That's my favorite.
Got to be Remember the Titans for sure.
Remember the Titans. I mean, it's top movie ever.
Probably Longest Yard.
I'd probably say Like Mike with Bow Wow.
Yeah.
My favorite sports movie, Remember the Titans.
Air Bud.
Perfect answer, actually.
I really don't know. I don't have one.
Movie? I haven't seen many, but does Sandlot count?
Favorite sports movie of all time? Probably Coach Carter.
Ooh, sports movie. Probably The Express.
Happy Gilmore.
The Little Giants.
Amari, what was your most favorite sports movie growing up?
Remember the Titans.
Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
I don't know the other one, but definitely not Barbie.
Oppenheimer, gotta be. I'm not against the Barbie movie though. I tried to recommend it. I was shut down pretty fast.
Oppenheimer. Come on now. You don't need to ask me that question. Oppenheimer looks good though.
What's Oppenheimer?
It's a movie about the atomic bomb. It's the big thing that comes out this Thursday.
Yeah, probably that.
Oppenheimer.
Wait, what was the other one?
Barbie or Oppenheimer?
The opposite of Barbie. The opposite of Barbie. Yeah, so I'm not.
We're gonna see Oppenheimer and then follow with Barbie.
Solid choice.
I don't even know what Oppenheimer is. I don't want to see Barbie though.
Oppenheimer, 100%.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Say a little bit louder.
Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Oh, we're gonna watch both of them. Maybe on the same night, but we'll probably watch. I think you gotta watch Barbie first, just so you're not. Oppenheimer might be a little too intense. You know what I'm saying? So you warm up with Barbie and then you go to the Oppenheimer.
The second one. Oppenheimer.
Sorry. Barbie or Oppenheimer? Which one are you and the boys seeing first?
Barbie.
Glad you're with us. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on. Hope everyone's having a great Monday. Coming up, we dive into the headline that's out there today based on a filing in court in Shelby County, Tennessee from Michael Oher, who's saying he was never adopted. Yes, the blind side and the whole story, according to Oher and through his attorney, is a lie. That's
Michael Oher wasn't adopted by Sandy Bullock, then what else are we to not believe moving forward?
You're telling me that
everyone's faith is shattered.
You're telling me that the recruiting scene with all the college coaches, that never happened either? Is that what we're going to find out next?
You telling me that Tim McGraw didn't mentor that young boy and let him grow into the man that became Michael Oher and the star at his alma mater, Ole Miss? What else are you going to tell me next?
Chad, what is true is Peyton Manning is teaching a course at the University of Tennessee. Professor Peyton is returning as a teacher. He's going to be in the field of College of Communication and Information,
where he majored.
And also with Omaha Productions, I'm assuming this is going to be huge for someone to get their foot in the door with all of this too. But he will join select classes during the academic year as a featured expert, and will work alongside faculty members on campus. So this will be in person as I read through this. And that's the unusual part of it. And the cool part, I think 10, 15, maybe they're still doing it. I don't hear about it as much, but 10, 15 years ago in college, the college I attended, the football coach had one course per semester. I feel like Fulmer at Tennessee did it as well. Other SEC coaches, Big Ten coaches, had different things that they were at least by title, their name was attached to. In this case, can you imagine trying to get this course and sign up through this major just to take for the possibility that you're getting one of the classes that he's going to be a part of?
If you're a student at Tennessee in the College of Communications, it's like hitting the lottery. If you actually get in this class that he's physically there teaching it, it would be hitting the lottery for a college student. It's awesome. When I first saw the headline, I thought, he's going to do this on Zoom, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. But when I saw he's physically in person in Knoxville, really cool.
He's back for his third season of Manning Cast, which is crushing it. The quote for Manning, "My time as a student was a foundational experience during which I learned critical skills and messaging techniques that I continue to put to use almost daily. I look forward to working with the college's talented faculty and directly with students in an effort to ensure they are all well prepared for their future careers. I don't know. Whenever everyone speculated, oh, what's Brady going to do? What's Manning going to do? I don't think anyone ever threw out a faculty member on a college campus as one of those options. This is cool. And again, the waiting list for this is going to be insane.
Well, Manning has just, Peyton I'm talking about, not Eli or Archie, has just done a little bit of everything. I mean, it's been a very relaxed yet public retirement so far. He's in the public eye, but he just seems to be a guy enjoying life and doing things that interest him. Whether it be the Manning cast, whether it be producing a series like Quarterback on Netflix, or being a college professor, or going and watching a bunch of football games in person with his kids. He's kind of just dipping his toes here and there, whatever he wants to do, and not making a big-time commitment in any one area. I think it's brilliant.
Eli Manning retweeted the story about Manning returning to about Peyton returning to campus and just said easy A, which is hilarious, comparing it to the movie. Who was in that? Emma Stone?
Yes.
I think
Emma Stone wasn't easy.
Whatever happened to her?
She, Jennifer Lawrence kind of went away for a while too, but she's in the movie that I want to see that was out this summer. No Hard Feelings, I think is the name of it. I don't know if it's on streaming yet or not, but I need to check that out now. That's a good reminder. Emma Stone hasn't done a lot. She was big for a time, but then kind of went away.
You think Peyton's on a teacher's salary, Chad?
I think Peyton is probably doing this pro bono. I don't think he's getting paid anything to do it. And there's going to be cameras rolling.
No
for
doubt.
Something.
Peyton's Places can be his season teaching.
What if they brought back MTV Cribs and it was just Peyton in like a college off-campus apartment in Knoxville? That's where he lives when he's teaching the class, and that they just show his off-campus apartment?
A lot has changed since you and I were in school, since Peyton certainly played at Tennessee. But Arch Manning, by the way, apparently had a great scrimmage and a great weekend of practice. That's news out of Austin. Who's better than any of the quarterbacks on the field, according to two reports I was reading over the weekend. It's crazy to look and continue to see the upgrades in the programs in high school for Texas high school football. Walnut Grove High School is in Prosper, Texas, and the facilities are better than some of the Division I colleges by far. From the training room to they have a Sonic.
They have a food court.
They have Jimmy John's. This is just the football facility, the athletic facility. The basketball arena looks like something brand new that Dayton, Ohio could use for the first four. The weight room is better than some NFL weight rooms that you will see in a facility. And then the indoor practice field, and then, Chad, the football stadium itself is magnificent. The money that goes into Texas high school sports. And I saw all this over the weekend, and I thought, this is Deion Sanders. This is Deion Sanders territory. With all of the different trips that Colorado will be making in the Big 12, if you want to get away, but you want to stay close to your hometown, and you want your family to watch you, even if you're playing for the Buffaloes, you can do it with Primetime, who certainly knows the state very well.
Well, my first thought is, who's funding this project? Because that is a lot of
the same people funding
tax
Texas
money.
A&M.
Yeah, I mean, but look, I think it's a combination of both. I think they do a lot with their tax allocation into academic, when I mean academic, high school athletic facilities, but also the high schools themselves, because they're so huge in Texas. I mean, the graduating classes at some of these places rival major universities.
Yes.
With the amount of public school kids that are in these huge schools.
Median income, by the way, in
yeah,
Prosper.
I mean, it's people that have a lot of oil money or a lot of generational wealth that put money back into high school programs in these states. I mean, Friday Night Lights isn't that far off. Varsity Blues isn't that far off from some of these places.
Prosper's a great name for it.
Yeah.
Prosper, Texas. The median household income, and just looking this up, not as much as I would expect. It's $159,000 per household.
That's the median, though.
I know.
That's really good.
No, but I'm saying like for kids that are going to, like we don't have stadiums like this for the upper echelon city that we're in.
No, not at all.
The boosters.
The jumbotron is really nice at this place. Incredible.
The upgrades are for real. Chad, the story of ESPN reportedly asking $4 billion from Penn National over the 10 years as a betting partner. They get it down to what, 1.5 or 2 over a 10-year payment schedule, and from both ends, Penn Entertainment, they get regulation, they get their license that they were saying that Barstool was keeping them from on the paperwork that was needed to stay legal and to stay active in certain states, even in Massachusetts, which was used as one example that Portnoy even alluded to whenever they got rid of Mincy. They now partner with ESPN, who has roughly 117 unique hits on their website compared to 8 million on average for Barstool. And the distribution there, where every program is going to be mentioning this, you download the ESPN Bets app, and who knows where it leads, but what it does do is it puts them in a stratosphere with FanDuel and DraftKings. Compared to where they were, which was 2% of the state of Illinois, for instance, compared to 51% for FanDuel or DraftKings in the same state. From ESPN's standpoint, when we alluded to this, 15, 20 minutes ago, Chad, they separate, but they partner. It's a completely different branch and a different building, and more or less the deal is tied to the licensing of the ESPN brand that Penn Entertainment now owns. But beyond that, they're getting paid, $1.5 to $2 billion over 10, and then you see it rise as we will watch that app continue to grow over the foreseeable future. It works for both.
Yeah, two big questions I have, though, about how successful this is going to be. One, is ESPN too late to the game? Because we have seen a plateauing effect when it comes to sports gambling, especially in marketing dollars they're spending and profits they're making, because they've been losing.
Let's go
one
by one, because keep number two in mind here. Number one for me is they're not too late, because the other apps, FanDuel and DraftKings, they don't offer many special offers for current subscribers, current users of the app. In this case, you should be getting some type of benefit for signing up for the first time. And then, to me, that's what would keep me coming back to any of them, any of those platforms, would be those that already are on the app and linked to it, have a reason to throw in more based on the current subscribers, not new subscribers, new downloads.
Well, the second part of this is where I think they could succeed big time. I go to ESPN for scores all the time. It's where I go on my phone for scores. If you can tie everything in to me watching the game on ESPN Plus, the baseball game I'm going over to or whatever it may be, to betting right there on the same app, you might have me. Because I'm going to two separate places. I'm going to a FanDuel account to bet, and I'm going to ESPN to watch or see scores for the most part. But if you can tie that interface, which I think is the best.
So you're saying it needs to be better than whatever FanDuel's doing when it shows you the score?
Yes.
Yeah, that's...
There's a lot more video options, too, through ESPN with their rights.
But you're right. But they would need the ESPN app platform, not the Penn Entertainment platform, right? I'm just trying to think it through on what they have the rights to and what they don't.
I don't know if it's even possible. They'd have to tie the two together. ESPN.com would have to be ESPN Bet also. All one.
Yeah. And that's where it gets tricky on the optics of things, right? That's what they're trying to stay away from. Meanwhile, you've got the Big Ten looking at Vegas for a Big Ten championship game now, because you can tie in, starting next year, USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington.
I love these reports coming off the heels of one of their schools being investigated by the Iowa Gaming Commission. While the Iowa Hawkeyes are betting the under on themselves, Big Ten is in talks with Vegas to host the conference championship game, which is hilarious.
Well, the hypocrisy
and also
is
the
everywhere.
Perfect encapsulation of 2023 college sports is that story.
And conference expansion compared with, like you're saying, the debate on Capitol Hill about regulation for name, image, likeness in the transfer portal for players, or they don't want them to be earn the status of employee, and they don't want them to have, the at-will employee status either. And they also have avoided, for the most part, saying revenue share, but at least some of the coaches have in recent weeks, and that's what
I
they're
think
trying to
coaches would be
avoid
all
with
for
regulation.
it. It's
Yeah.
the people above the coaches, school presidents, NCAA that doesn't want it, but the coaches, they'd be fine with that. Like, oh, so we have this much to allot them. Great, let them have it. That would be their attitude.
And the revenue share would lead to a union, because that's where, if you really want the college NFL, quote unquote, and I'm not saying if you want it, if you are curious about how the model would work, that's where the player union would step in. And the NFL model for that through revenue share is the media rights, where the players get 49.5% of an annual rights fee from all the different networks. That would be where we would be headed down the path. Maybe we were already headed that way. But right now it's like 9% of their athletic budget by and large, and they don't want it to get to 49.5%. So you have federal law instead of NCAA rules that the NCAA can enforce, which, they're struggling to even do that with Jim Harbaugh, having to release statements about cheeseburgers.
That's right.
We'll get into that as we lead off the final hour of the Monday edition. That plus Michael Oher saying, in fact, he was never adopted, saying the Tuohys have lied to everyone. Details next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted
he
and then how he did it.
He bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.
Almost made it, Hutton. Almost made it.
Monday edition. Glad you're with us. The OutKick Network includes our great YouTube channel. Hopefully you've already subscribed. If you have, you know you get all of the shows, live or on demand, clips, and much more, extra content. Subscribe if you haven't. Just search out OutKick on YouTube, and you can find us and all of the great programs there. You can also find Chad in the chat with those that are joining us live 3 o'clock Eastern, weekday afternoons here on OutKick, and certainly appreciate the radio end of this as well with the great radio partner you're listening to currently. Chad, Jim Harbaugh, well, he's going to coach every game this season. And it's not, I think the headlines are a bit deceiving here, where, you know, the headlines were he avoids suspension.
He skates by.
Yeah, but that is true. He's not going to be suspended for the first 4 games of the upcoming season. But skates by isn't how I would describe the statement from one of the NCAA vice presidents, Derek Crawford, who, and again, it was over not cooperating with an investigation that has since had a show cause penalty and other suspensions for offensive and defensive assistants. Here's the quote from Derek Crawford. The Michigan infractions case is related to impermissible on- and off-campus recruiting during the COVID-19 dead period and impermissible coaching activities, not a cheeseburger. It is not uncommon
key part, not a cheeseburger,
for the Committee on Infractions to seek clarification on key facts prior to accepting the deal here. I'm implying that there. They also say that the agreement is not going to be agreed upon unless it's in the best interests of the association or the penalties are not reasonable. If the involved parties cannot resolve a case through the negotiated resolution process, it may proceed to a hearing, but the committee believes cooperation is the best avenue to quickly resolve issues. That from the NCAA Vice President on Hearing Operations, Derek Crawford. 2 things I take from this. Number one, the head coach at Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, wasn't cooperating earlier this year whenever they were looking into this by saying he didn't remember. Has to be behind the scenes pushing the narrative of, well, this is over a cheeseburger. What did we give a recruit a food here? Was it over? Did we buy something that we shouldn't have? Look around college athletics right now in the landscape that we're looking at and the money that's being handed out. And we can't do a hamburger lunch. Well, really, it's more than that. It's contact during a dead period or practice regimens, workouts, different things. Was Michigan the only one doing this? Absolutely not. But it's the non-cooperation from Harbaugh that is alluded to even at the very bottom where it says, hey, of the statement, we want something that's in the best interest of both parties. And while we can go to a hearing, we prefer that we go through the negotiated process to come to an agreement first. Chad, I take this as that was not going to happen with Harbaugh, who was still pushing back on the 4-game negotiated suspension that everyone was in an uproar over because, again, you have a violation of rules that they are apparently trying to enforce, and they're negotiating the suspension down, not up. based on breaking those rules and policies. I get it. It's laughable across the board with what the NCAA chooses to police and what they don't. But in this case, they are at least taking a step back and saying, hey, this isn't good for us. Sorry, Jim. We're going to take our time and come back around to it. So, yeah, while he avoids suspension, my guess is the suspension is coming, just not in 2023. And who knows if Harbaugh's there in 2024.
Well, the NCAA is saying cooperation is always the best path. Clearly, not cooperating is Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. Last I checked, Jim Harbaugh still has a boss at Michigan. I don't know who that is. I know he's been at odds with his athletic director, but they could still just say, well, they didn't accept this as the punishment, but because you won't answer questions, the NCAA, we're going to suspend you for 4 games in hopes that that will be negated by whatever they come back and say, right, in the future. That could be a time spent type thing. At least to throw the NCAA a bone and saying, we're playing ball a little bit. You didn't accept it, but we're gonna do this regardless, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to do that, though. He's going to coach every game this year. Michigan's going to go try to win a national championship, which is possible with this returning roster they have and their schedule. So they're going to go big this year. And my expectation is after this year, one of two things will happen. Jim Harbaugh will miss the entire 2024 season because the NCAA is going to try to make a point about lying to them and not being forthcoming and not meeting and not cooperating with them. So he'll get a full season suspension, or he'll bolt for the NFL and not deal with any of it.
Well, what's interesting, though, is the reports that were coming out about this, based on not cooperating with the investigation, it's not that he lied, it's that he's saying he didn't remember, right? I don't recall, which isn't helping the direction of the investigation. But, Chad, do you remember the maximum suspension could have been 6 games? And they were negotiating a 4-game suspension. I don't know. Can they go back and now try to go after a year? If they can't, they can't even get Harbaugh suspended for 6 games, which is the maximum. If they're so upset with the situation, they could do that based on the infractions and the bylaws there, the rules. But they were negotiating 4, and it's the way it's been handled perception-wise publicly that I think has irked the NCAA.
Well, the NCAA can do whatever they want, because if they say that since this happened, he's been less cooperative, which he has. I mean, he did not want the 4-game suspension. He made that very clear in his answers. Like, he does not want to play ball the NCAA at all, and he's only going to say things that continue to show that. So if you show them up, that's when they start to try to show out. Yeah. And I mean the NCAA, so that they could do whatever they want. Now, could Michigan come back and say, well, what about 6 games to the NCAA? What if we suspended for 6?
Yeah, but
they just told them what we're doing.
But you're like, who's his boss? The president of Michigan, Santa Ono, I believe.
They're like best buddies.
Yeah, I mean, Ono on his own Twitter account was tweeting out that Harbaugh was back before the AD even knew about it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's Wetzel, though, from Yahoo says that this is something that's not going away. It's just kind of been tabled, which is not a good thing for either side and the timetable of how this normally goes. Crazy story.
I think the worst thing, just wrapping this whole thing up, the fact that the NCAA put in an official statement from one of their vice presidents, this is not about a cheeseburger. Mark that down. I've never seen that before. I've never seen the NCAA officially comment on media reports that way and try to dispel the notion that this is something small. That's them saying this is not small. This is big. And I'll tie it back into Tennessee. Tennessee was up to more stuff too, but their head coach and entire staff got fired, and they cooperated with the NCAA. Over half of it was over COVID-19 violations.
Right.
And that's what the NCAA is directly saying Michigan is guilty of as well.
But those that have been penalized would continue to be under discipline. Like the show cause, you've got, there would have been a show cause, but the defensive coordinator ends up with John Harbaugh in Baltimore with the Ravens. So those penalties have already been levied or will be. And also, like, the NCAA, they had to release a statement if Michigan, or if word was getting out that he was going to coach those 4 games. So they had to respond in some way. This is more heavy-handed, you're right, than what we would normally see from, what AI could have written or typed up for the NCAA in that regard. Crazy story with Michael Oher today in a Tennessee court for news that he found out, through his attorney saying that they found out back in February that he was never legally adopted, that in fact the Tuohys, Sean and Leanne Tuohy, did in fact sign a document with Michael Oher when he turned 18 on a conservatorship that allowed them to have the legal authority to make business deals and use his name behind that and then profit off of it. So this stems from, of course, The Blind Side. In 2009, it grossed over $300 million as a film. Emmy Award winner in some categories, right? Sandra Bullock, I believe, with of course, Tim McGraw. So in a Tennessee court today, Michael Oher claims that the Tuohys struck a deal with him, and he signed this document at 18 under the notion that he was being adopted, and that was not the case. He's not legally through the Oher family, the Tuohy family. He was just signing a document that allowed them the right to have the legal authority over finance and business decisions, which he found out at the age of 37 this past February. And I mentioned earlier, I'm adopted. I'm 39. I cannot imagine what I would be thinking if I signed something at 18 and it was under this notion that I was adopted by the Tuohys, which, I mean, under the premise of who took him in and who formed and shaped Michael Oher as we know him, yes, but legally, no. And he's trying to get an injunction through a court, through a judge, to where they can no longer profit off of his name. And then retroactively, he's trying to go back and see what money was profited off of his name and get his quote-unquote fair share. It's crazy. He's saying that they've lied about the entire story of adoption that everyone really came to know through the movie The Blind Side.
Devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Is it on 18-year-old Michael Oher to know what he's signing when he's signing paperwork and know exactly what it is?
I don't know.
Or are we, and I'm sympathetic to this, or are you just thinking, this family that took me in for the last few years or last couple of years, they're not leading me astray. I'll sign whatever. If it means that I'm a part of the family that I've already been in for a while, then I'll just sign it if they tell me that it is. And here's the other thing. Were the Tuohys up to no good by waiting until he was 18 to have him sign this and misleading him about what it was? Or is this just some giant misunderstanding about what it is exactly that he signed and how they were saying it basically is adoption, and he took it as you are legally adopting me? A lot of questions. Not a lot of answers right now because the Tuohy family, they've no commented on everything that's gone on and these allegations in the story from ESPN.
So this happened less than 3 months after he turned 18. They took him in. Do you remember how old he was when they took him in? It was high school.
Yeah, I want to say like 15 or 16.
Because he was bouncing around to different homes. And then ultimately the Tuohys brought him into their home. But the way that the petition it reads, it's saying that the couple tricked him into signing a document that made them conservators of any future finance, any future earnings. That is, we've got to hear from them and the other side. We'll hear from their lawyer. But the allegations are, he's calling them liars through this. And I immediately think like, okay, because he didn't like the movie anyway. And I know that firsthand with him speaking at his locker when he was briefly with Tennessee and the Titans after playing with the Ravens. I know he didn't like the film. But he found out this past year that, in fact, legally, they've profited and he didn't profit what he certainly thinks he should. Now, and that not only the Tuohys, but their birth children also profited greatly based on the money that comes in through the royalties of this movie.
To me, that's the big one. So the Tuohys have commented publicly saying they did not take any percentage of royalties. They just got paid a flat fee for the story to begin with. Michael Oher is saying there's a 2.5% royalty bonus that the family got that was split amongst Sean and Leanne Tuohy and their 2 biological children. And he got none of that. If Oher and his attorney can prove that, that's pretty damning on the Tuohys.
That's what they're trying to do.
That looks terrible.
They're trying to go and look at the finance.
They also
records.
outright lied about not getting a percentage of anything when they said they just got a flat fee.
So
if that's the case.
This through the report and through the attorney. While the deal allowed the Tuohys to profit from the film, the petition alleges a separate 2007 contract that Oher apparently signed appears to, quote, give away, end quote, to 20th Century Fox Studios the life rights to his story without any payment whatsoever. The filing also says Oher has no recollection of signing that contract, and even if he did, no one explained the implications to him. But based on the conservatorship, if they're conservators of his name, they could sign that document having the legal authority to do so without him signing it. That's crazy.
It's nuts. This will be the movie. The Blind Side will be 15 years old next year. Trevor in the YouTube chat says that this may be a part of the director's cut coming soon. This whole lawsuit at the end of it. Yes.
Blindsided. Michael
You got to
Oher.
put a different cry on at the end of the movie, saying in August of 2023, Michael Oher sued the Tuohys for not actually adopting him.
And in the court proceedings today, through this petition, Oher is saying he never received any money from the movie.
Yeah. That's the other thing. If they got a flat fee,
yeah, but you would know, like,
wouldn't you pay him something?
This is, I mean, that's not new.
Well, when did it shift? So here's what I would ask: like, when did the whole dynamic shift? When it went away from the Tuohys, who were very wealthy in Memphis, paying for Michael Oher, and how long did that last? To apparently the Tuohys giving him nothing, or did they give him a lot in college and after? Even as he was a highly paid professional football player.
And he's well known, not just because of football, but because of the film and the story.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's
People will always know him more for that than his playing career.
Coming up, what's the future look like for paying running backs and the great debate there? And how do players solve it in the NFL? Andrew Brandt joins us coming up on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
The 2 biggest social media giants, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are set to battle it out, and I'm here on Broadway asking people who they put their money on. Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, they're going to fight each other. Who do you think's going to win?
I think Mark's got him.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a man.
Okay, and Elon Musk isn't.
Oh, well, of course, he's got money.
Okay.
He's got money. Money, well, you know, money's money.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg in a fight?
I don't know. I'm going to go with Musk.
Why?
He just seems like he's a little bit younger, a little bit smarter.
You just got a good feeling about him?
I got a good feeling.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Musk.
Why?
He trains. That guy's going to beat his.
But Mark Zuckerberg is actually training jiu-jitsu for 9 months.
Not happening. Not Elon Musk all day. Elon Musk.
Why do you think?
He has no soul. I mean, I think he's definitely just going to no holds barred.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I feel like he's stronger and smarter.
Oh, Elon Musk.
All the way? Why?
All the way. He's an animal. Think about it.
Mark Zuckerberg's been training for 9 months jiu-jitsu. You think Elon Musk can take him?
Yeah, I think he could take him. Elon, that oh God, stop playing with Elon. Elon really do this out here, for real.
I hope Elon
Really? Why do you think so?
got better ideas.
Zuckerberg's like 5'7", 155. Musk is 6'1", 190. But Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, who's going to win in a fight?
Oh, Elon Musk. No doubt.
Why do you think so?
He's the GOAT. I've been seeing all the Twitter handles and all the talk, and I'm on Elon Musk's side. I'm ready for them to get in the WWE ring and then come off the top rope. That's what I want to see. I want to see a people's elbow to Mark Zuckerberg.
If one was more likely to be a lizard or a robot, who would it be?
Elon. Elon.
Okay.
I think Mark Zuckerberg will win.
Why do you think that?
Because I think he already trains MMA. So he's got like the prior experience and stuff. I mean, they're both billionaires, so they have the opportunity to get the best training. But I think Mark Zuckerberg will pull away with the win.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think so?
Because he's bigger.
Bigger. Okay, but Mark Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Do you think that matters?
No.
Zuckerberg, he's part alien or robot, so he may have some secret powers that we don't know about.
I was going to say, like, is that an advantage? Does he have an advantage over Elon Musk then?
Yeah, I mean, if he, sheds his skin and becomes an alien and eats everyone, yeah, I think so.
Elon Musk is mental, so Elon Musk.
All it is just he's mental. He's mentally crazy, so...
He just wouldn't care, would he?
Okay.
He'd just absolutely go for it. I think Zuckerberg would be a bit more refrained.
Okay.
If that should ever happen, which I doubt, but you never know, it'd be entertaining.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Elon Musk.
Why?
Because
Elon
my
Musk.
dad is in love with Elon Musk.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go with Zuckerberg. I mean, Threads just came out, so...
Who do you think would win?
Zuck.
Why do you think so?
He's not a real human, he's a robot.
So he'll use that to his advantage?
Yeah, and all the Krav Maga stuff, too, yeah.
Who do you think would win in a fight, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Why do you think Elon Musk?
I think Elon's
He
smarter.
works with robots, so maybe he built a robot to fight for him.
But what if Mark Zuckerberg is a robot?
Oh wow. Then I might have to change my answer.
Who do you think's gonna win?
Me.
Sixth and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us on this Monday edition. Hope you'll join us on the YouTube channel or by listening to this great radio partner. Just search out OutKick. Coming up, a preseason play from the weekend that you've got to see to believe or hear to believe. We'll dive into that momentarily. The discussion about running back compensation has been going on for months, and Josh Jacobs continues to hold out with Vegas. You've got Jonathan Taylor, who's back in Indianapolis, but status remains the same. He wants to be traded. How do NFL players go about solving this solution instead of just discussing it? It's got to be more than just holding a Zoom call amongst players prior to the start of the regular season.
Okay, Andrew Brandt has plenty of answers and opinions on what could be on the horizon. You can check him out with the Business of Sports podcast, which is excellent. Also, the Sports Business League, which you can learn more about, and membership available for great insights at andrew-brandt.com. Great to have you back on. Hope you're doing well.
Good to be with you as always. There's no real football going on, but the business of football never ends. It seems like I've been busier. People sort of in my area have been busier this offseason than many others. And like you said, both college and pro. And, that's my background. I was an agent many years. I worked for the Packers 10 years, and now I do this. And the busy time is the offseason. When the season's going, when the games are being played in all those professions I mentioned, it's kind of kicked back, then it's turned over to players and coaches and that side of the world. But sports business is really for the off season. It's really when things happen, the contracts, the free agency, the assemblage of teams, and then the bigger issues about media and about conference realignment in college. And of course, all the dystopia that we've seen with running backs and contracts in the NFL.
I want to start with college and across the landscape if we can. Andrew Brandt with us. Do you foresee a college players union on the horizon? And if so, how would they get that started? How do you build that from the ground up behind the scenes?
Well, I think in terms of how it would start, it's like any union starts where you have a group that wants to collectively bargain and wants to represent them as a bargaining unit. Question I have is, like, who would they go to? Would it be all football players? Would it be a segment of the football population? Would it be Power 5 football? Would it only be starters? Would it be quarterbacks and receivers treated differently? That's a big question. And then who are they bargaining with? Are they bargaining with the schools? Are they bargaining with the NCAA? Are they bargaining with the athletic department? Are they bargaining with the university president? So you can say, you sort of hear this, yeah, they should be employees, they should bargain, but then you're like, well, wait a minute, what about, would there be a salary cap? Would there be cuts? Would there be workman's compensation? What tax treatment would everyone get? What about school part of it? If that's allowed, if that's optional? So there's more questions than answers when it comes to that. But on the broader picture, what we've seen is that it is all about the money. It is all about finding the right media partner right now in college football at the highest levels, because media is the lifeblood of all college sports. And if you can get media revenues that win over other options, that's where people are going to go. We've seen that in the past couple of weeks.
And depending on who you ask, it's either doom and gloom and college football as we know it, and college football is going to be dead in 10 years and all of this. Coaches will sort of spout that line about the sport. They don't like where it is. They don't like where it's heading. Players have a different opinion on everything. Media that cover the sport seem to think everything's fine. The product is okay. What do you think? Just the cold business perspective of what you've seen and what could be next. Should we be afraid about the future of college football?
Depends how people feel about purity and amateurism. That's my simplest answer. I think if you hold on to that ideal in Power 5, big time college football, it's not going to be very pretty for you. This is messy right now. The perfect storm combination of name, image, likeness money and the transfer portal has created free agency without a salary cap. It's created the option for top college football players to go through a season, come to the end of it, throw their name in the portal, whether they want to leave or not. And really, then it's about what's the number, okay? So if I can go out in the portal, I can see, well, I can get this number, pick a number, $500,000, $1 million, $700,000 from this school. Then I can go back to my school and say, can you match 700 or do better? It's total free agency with no salary cap. And for those who think that college football should be more amateur, should be more about scholarships and tuition and the old days, yeah, it's not good. But if you're realistic about the economics, then you've got to take a different view of it. I have multiple feelings on this, guys. I do think the name on the front of the jersey is probably more important than the name on the back of the jersey. So how do you deal with that? If Michigan and Ohio State or Tennessee and Florida or Alabama and LSU are going to play a football game, how many of those 100,000 people in the stands would not come if so-and-so player wasn't playing, right? It's like, it's all about the brand in my case. So what I think is these players are making a ton of money off these brands that they otherwise wouldn't if they went to smaller schools. So it's really sort of a win-win for the players right now.
Andrew Brandt, our guest on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. To the NFL, you mentioned the running back issues that the players have had, the franchise tag. The only position lower would be the kickers and punters on the tag, and there's an $8 million gap between the next positions that they're comparing themselves to. Jonathan Taylor sees what's going to happen here. If he plays, likely he's receiving the tag, if he plays well, from the Indianapolis Colts a year from now. What do you make of the situation there? And, behind the scenes, of course, everything that Irsay has said, and now how they're trying to also say that they want Jonathan Taylor long term.
Yeah, before we leave college, let's talk about that here, because I think running backs are severely disadvantaged by this college eligibility rule with the draft. It's 3 years, as you know. You got to be 3 years removed from high school compared to 1 year in the NBA, no requirement in baseball or hockey. So what does that mean? That means ages 18, 19, 20, they can't get paid other than NIL. So now we're looking at a real disadvantage for this specific position. For quarterbacks, offensive line, defensive line, not so much. But for this position, those are prime earning years. So by the time they get to the NFL at age 21, 22, they're under a rookie contract 4 years till age 26. There's a franchise tag, a fifth-year option for first rounders. Saquon Barkley's not going to see free agency for 7 years, if that. And Jonathan Taylor's in the same boat. What I can't tell you, and you can't tell me, and no one listening can say this, if Jonathan Taylor has the greatest year ever, is that going to help him next year? I don't know. I don't think it will. Think about that. If he has one of the greatest running back years ever, is it going to help him get a contract next year? I don't know. It may hurt. Because with running backs and short shelf life and the shortest career in any position, productivity early in your career does not equal future value. That's the scary thing about the position. How do you solve it? I don't know. I wish I had an answer. Frankly, some of these running backs have called me because they're searching for any answer. If they could get the union not to put aside a special fund for running backs, not to have them treated differently, but if somehow the union could bargain down the draft eligibility rule to what the NBA has 1 year out, that would make a huge difference for running backs. Because then teams would be, okay, I'll give them a second contract at age 23 instead of age 26. Even that would make a huge difference.
Let's stick with running back. Is there a way that Saquon Barkley can view what he did with this adjusted contract as a win for him?
I mean, depends how much he wanted to get back in camp. I've been public about this. I don't know why he did that deal. $900,000 of hard-to-earn incentives, which require the Giants to make the playoffs, and a $2 million advance. Basically, he gets the money two months before he was going to otherwise get it. To come to camp 6 weeks before he really needed to get his big check starting in September. I don't get it. And I see why Josh Jacobs is not showing up. He's a franchise tag player. He doesn't need to show up. He'll show up when the games count and he gets his $600,000 a week. But yeah, I don't get it with Barkley. It just shows you, guys, players like Danielle Hunter and Matthew Judon and Budda Baker, you know what the teams did? They just threw him free money for 2023, just to make him happy. Not incentives, right? Not incentives. They gave him real money. Now, Barkley had to sort of beg for his food with incentives. And back to my point about Taylor, if Barkley, now he needs the ball, right? Now he needs to get a lot of carries to get those incentives. So the idea of him saving himself for free agency, that's not there either.
Andrew, you certainly know the Packers' stance and the background with Rodgers there.
Yeah.
In New York, he takes a $35 million pay cut. What's really going on there behind the scenes other than him just volunteering to take a $35 million pay cut?
Yeah, I'd like to know if there's more to the story because we were reading, or at least reports 2 weeks before that he wanted equity, that he wanted actually a piece of the Jets. And then he takes it's a little complicated because what he had was an option deal inherited by the Jets from the Packers that moved the money actually to 2024. So the way it was structured, he was making like $1 million in 2023 and $107 million in 2024. Now he's making $38 million in 2023. So he actually got a $37 million pay increase, but he took a $70 million pay cut in 2024. So it's a little bit slanted to say he took a $35 million pay cut because that money wasn't guaranteed. $50 million or so was guaranteed of that old deal. But he's getting great press, and obviously it looks great for him. It really comes down to, is he going to play next year? I know he says all the right things, but he was in the darkness this year, pretty much retired. So you hope he's back next year. If he's not back, then he just got $35 million more than he was going to get without this deal. We'll see what happens. We'll see if this deal's redone next year, if he comes back, which sort of brings him back the money. But right now, yes, it's quite a gesture by Aaron, who I know and like, towards the Jets.
So Saudi money has been a big talking point with everything this past summer. So far, the private investment fund has mostly invested in international sports, tennis, golf, Formula One racing, soccer. Andrew, do you see a scenario where they start to inject their money and ownership into big American sports, football, baseball, other American-based big leagues?
Yeah, first of all, I was at the Live Tour this weekend at the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, and I was impressed. I mean, listen, the teams thing is cool in my opinion, and the music sort of gets you pumped up like you're arriving at a running race. Like I do marathons and running races. It sort of was a nice way, and the shotgun starts. I'm like, a lot of this stuff makes sense. We talk about baseball new rules, trying to get more fans. That makes a lot of sense. So it's clearly injected itself into golf, and I'm hearing that the future may look more live-like than PGA-like with golf. Could they inject into American sports? Yes. The answer is yes, but don't hold your breath for Saudi majority ownership. In other words, a sport like the NBA allows for sovereign wealth fund investment, but it's up to 30%, with no individual firm having more than 20%. So it's already happened with the Washington Wizards and Capitals. There's 5% money, not from the Saudis, but from Qatari. So Middle Eastern money is already in there, and I would think the Saudis will invest in these sports leagues without majority control. But you know what I say, these billion, the Commanders going for $6 billion, you're going to run out of multi-billionaires, right? So you're going to have to look to institutional money, private equity, obviously, but even Saudi and institutional money from overseas. I think it's coming. And the thing I'll say about the attitude towards Saudi money, I think already, guys, it's changing. Maybe incrementally, but bit by bit, the more they invest in golf, in F1, in European soccer, in the Washington Wizards, there's that desensitization that the Saudis are these terrible people. So it's working. What they're doing is working as they try to diversify from oil into a more likable area of sports.
There's Andrew Brandt, sports business insider, and does great work at andrew-brandt.com. Always great to chat with him. And as we're having this discussion with Andrew Brandt, Ezekiel Elliott, speaking of running backs, has signed with the New England Patriots. Ezekiel Elliott, who is signing, according to reports, a one-year contract worth up to $6 million. Say what you want about Zeke. The last 2 seasons in Dallas, 22 touchdowns combined. And he's now competing for carries, or the other way around, really, with Ramondre Stevenson. The reaction should be interesting from him. We'll see if we can find that coming up. Plus, a play in the preseason from this weekend you got to see. That's next on Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted, and then how
he bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous a scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old taste of a Southern legend.
Shout out to our staff here in Nashville, across the OutKick network, for making it happen today. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Top Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Glad you're with us as well, if you're streaming or listening live. So, Zeke Elliott finds a landing spot. He's going to be a New England Patriot. Scored 22 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. And while he's certainly not the number one option at this point in his career, he lost that to Tony Pollard, even though they were still giving Zeke a ton of carries. A lot of those came in the red zone, Chad, and they made the most of it when they reached there with Zeke carrying or catching the football. He's now competing with Ramondre Stevenson, who's the lead back in New England. But after, taking a peek at Dalvin Cook, now it is Ezekiel Elliott that will be a part of that run game. And that's big. They need to bolster the run game in New England to help out Mac Jones. And next week we will see Zeke Elliott firsthand. He'll be rolling through Nashville as part of a joint practice with the Titans.
Pretty clearly 4th out of 4 teams in that division, the Patriots coming into the season. A team that's not 4th out of 4 would be the Dolphins. That was initially the thought for Dalvin Cook. Now that Zeke Elliott is with the Patriots, Hutton, my big question is what does that mean for Dalvin Cook, if anything?
Yeah, he can continue. Ultimately, he's going to sign for a deal that was less than whatever pay cut he was offered from Minnesota if he wants to play. There are a handful of options. What does that mean? He's hoping for an injury somewhere for a running back needy team. Or he can play on a small offer, a low offer, I should say, from Miami. But he hasn't landed there, even though he wants to play there, and he's made that perfectly clear. Interesting, because now it seems as though they're on the right path with Mac Jones in New England. Bill O'Brien's brought in. All the talk about hot seat for Belichick. O'Brien is there to run the offense. And, as far as offensive coordinators go, O'Brien has that NFL style that fits Mac Jones's style at quarterback. and they now have the run game, at least on paper, that should be serviceable behind Stevenson. Bringing in the veteran like Elliott for a one-year contract.
The season where we discover whether or not it's been a coaching issue before or a Mac Jones issue. Because this year it's all about Mac Jones. They got him what he needed to succeed. If he doesn't, they have a Mac Jones quarterback problem.
They've got Devontae Parker. Juju Smith-Schuster is there at wide receiver. Tyquan Thornton is back. They've got Kayshon Boutte from LSU as one of the rookies. What, a 6th-round pick, I think, is what he was. He's certainly better than that. And in their backfield, it's really a two-player combo with Stevenson and Elliott with others behind them. Chad, did you see Kyler Murray? He's wearing like a sports bra at practice. What is this? I don't care. Wear whatever you want, but wear a Cardinals uniform. Put a jersey on, and if you're not going to wear that, wear a shirt. He's wearing a sports bra at practice, and I can't help but think if I'm a player looking at the leader of the team, which is the quarterback spot, and he's looking like this at practice, I'm not following that guy.
Yeah, it is
There's
definitely
no leadership quality there.
It's definitely a sports bra. It's very popular in soccer. All soccer players wear this underneath their kit.
Yeah.
I've noticed. Watching the Nashville SC game against a team they took off their jersey and they all had those on.
Underneath.
Yeah. I don't understand the value of it.
Well, if there's value, there's value. Just put a.
Well, if you have man boobs, I understand the value behind it, but he doesn't. So I don't get it.
I don't care one way or the other. If you think he's a great quarterback that hasn't been in the right system, or if you think, he's just a guy who likes to play video games that happens to choose football over baseball, whatever. I don't care who it is. You can't show up wearing this at a practice. This is the representative of the organization currently, because no one really knows Jonathan Gannon. No one knows Monty Ossenfort, the new general manager. And they have one of the worst rosters, period. One of their first signings was a turnstile offensive tackle that played here last year. And Monty Ossenfort was also here last year in the front office. That was one of their first offseason signings for the Cardinals roster. Not going to be pretty.
Trevor in the YouTube chat.
No pretty shot here of Kyler Murray.
No, he says these sports bras are officially called the GPS tracker vest. Very common among male footballers. According to experts, modern players in the game wear it in order to read their GPS data.
Again.
Couldn't you wear something else for that?
You can wear it. They also put it in the GPS trackers for camp. It's in their pads, or it's right inside their uniform in their back collar where the tag would be. That's where they wear them for those purposes. In games, whatever, like the next-gen stats and all that have everything hooked up. But normally it's in a little pocket attached to their shoulder pads, not on a sports bra. I don't see many offensive linemen wearing sports bras.
Do you think he wears this while playing Call of Duty? Maybe this is his battle attire?
Maybe nude.
Could be. Maybe nude with all but the sports bra.
Possibly.
Everything else. Party downstairs, sports bra up top.
If players are wearing this, so be it. Just put a T-shirt or a jersey on.
Yeah, it's bad.
I mean, you can see in the photo, everyone else is padded up.
I don't like, but just wear, like if there's something about restricting something, or just wear like a tank top that's that. Like finish it out, right?
Yeah.
You don't need just the up top. Just go ahead and go all the way down.
He's got the day off. Like, come on, man.
It's bad.
You don't need the GPS tracker if you have the day off and you're just walkie-talking the play calls in. Apparently, by the way, the offense in Arizona, Chad, is going to be more diverse. It's going to be more NFL-like instead of college structured in terminology. So it's more than like 3 or 4 words to get the play call in, like Kingsbury was using.
Yeah.
That's another frightening sign for any Cardinals fans out there.
And keep in mind, Cliff Kingsbury's simple offense was apparently too tough for Kyler Murray because of his video game playing.
Yeah, they put in, the 4-hour
It is not a good vote of confidence for a more complex offense.
Yeah, but the GM and the head coach that were there, Keim and Kingsbury, they handed out that contract, which was $150 million guaranteed, I believe, for Murray. Chad, Damar Hamlin back at practice a couple of weeks ago. This weekend, played in the preseason game for the Buffalo Bills, and I mean it is he says he's not thinking twice about playing his game, playing the sport he loves, but the emotions behind the scenes have to be extraordinary for a guy that was not just carted off, but went to the hospital that we thought we all witnessed his death on a Monday Night Football game. Here's Damar Hamlin postgame.
Look, when you step in between them lines, you putting yourself at risk by hesitating and by reserving yourself. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I made the choice that I wanted to play. You know, it wasn't nobody else's choices but mine. So making that choice, I know what comes with it. You know what I'm saying? So when you see my cleats laced up with my helmet and shoulder pads on, there ain't going to be no hesitation. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't play this game like that. You'll put yourself at more risk by hesitating. So, you know, I'm out there. I'm just not thinking twice. I'm just playing my game and playing how I was taught to play since I was my little brother's age. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's incredible. It's an incredible story. You know, the movie rights there are going to be something to behold. Tying back in the story today with Michael Oher and The Blind Side. But also keep this in mind. He was playing towards the end of the year due to depth issues and injuries. They've got their starter and backups, the second string, pretty much set. If he's on the roster, he's playing special teams or he's inactive on game day. So it's not going to be a slight to Damar Hamlin that I could see some trying to twist into, oh, you know, they're not playing him because they're scared he's going to get hurt. He was inactive in most cases anyway based on his roster status. I think it's remarkable that he's back competing for a job and doing it well.
Yeah, it's a great feel-good story that he's out there. And he's right. I mean, if you're going to do this, any sport, you can't think twice about it. And he looks like a guy who's not thinking twice, so good for him.
Play of the weekend.
Oh, this is incredible.
Play of the weekend. Nathan Rourke, former Ohio Bobcat quarterback, played in the CFL, now with Jacksonville, and he's battling for a backup role against C.J. Beathard and battling to be the third quarterback on the active roster. Evaded what felt like every player on the field and what is a moment that you only really see in bad football movies because it doesn't look realistic. Evading so many different would-be tacklers to throw not just a first down, but a touchdown pass in the preseason game against Dallas.
It looked like Tommy Frazier for Nebraska against Florida in the Fiesta Bowl back in the day, bouncing off guys and breaking tackles, and then able to get out of a pocket and throw the touchdown. Incredible. For a guy that does not look that athletic.
No.
He just looks like a big old truck. And I guess that's what you need in that case is a big old truck to break tackles and throw that touchdown pass.
But in a play, Chad, where at one point there are so many defenders around him, you can't see him. You just assume he's at the bottom of the pile. And for a brief moment,
he miraculously comes out of the pile in one instance.
And then throws the touchdown. I mean, it's, 11 players felt like 13 on this play, and he still threw the touchdown in Dallas. Well done. And it was a dime.
I hope he makes the team.
I do too. I mean, he made the top highlight reel of the preseason games. That's for sure. And I'm with you. What a story that would be. You know who's going to make the team is Stetson Bennett out in Los Angeles. Chad, we mentioned whenever he was drafted, 4th round. Well, of course, Sean McVay. It's all about quarterback and head coach pairing. We've seen that with Kyle Shanahan and who it works for, who it doesn't work with. Who knows what happens with Trey Lance, but it certainly worked with Brock Purdy. In this case, the pairing of Sean McVay with Stetson Bennett, like this could work. And he's always been, Bennett has always been the guy that's like, oh, well, the magic, we're going to see the clock strike midnight soon on whatever we've seen at Georgia. Well, then he goes back-to-back with national championships. The fan base wanted him benched going into the college football playoff the first championship year. And then he goes on this tear in the playoff after playing awful against Alabama in the SEC title game, and then sets all types of records for Georgia going on to win their first title in 41 years. Now he's back-to-back. He's going to have a statue at some point in Athens. And now he's on the verge of making the roster as a 4th-round quarterback for Sean McVay's Los Angeles Rams. In his debut, 17 completions, nearly 200 yards, and a touchdown, where, I'm the guy that's saying don't read in and overreact, but it's hard not to whenever he's putting up certain numbers with a certain coach that we're not seeing across the board with what is regarded as poor quarterback play and poor quarterback development once you get past the second string option. Bennett is better than that, and he's showing it in live game action. That's important to note. He's with the right coach.
Well, since he came back to Georgia and started dominating and winning games, his whole story is so improbable.
Yeah.
The most improbable would be him becoming a good starter in the NFL. That would just shock me.
Like average starter. Just
Good.
a starter.
Good. Top 15 starter in the NFL. That would be remarkable.
Well, I would say, the average would be
He's
somewhere
going
between 12
to
and
make the
16
team.
quarterbacks.
He's making the team. It's now, can he become a starter?
And you know what? He looks
not right now, but eventually.
He looks comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like, he doesn't look like he gets rattled. If he's facing pressure, he's not all that concerned. He gets the ball away. The score doesn't matter here. But if you just watch every pass attempt and throw and, some of the options that they had within the offense and who he's playing with, there are a lot of teams out there that could use Stetson Bennett right now because they don't really have a great backup option.
Now, how will he be as a backup, though, personality-wise?
Yeah, see, I don't.
And what you need from the backup, because this offseason he didn't show that as a guy that's going to be a great backup quarterback.
But he's a guy that's been the backup in some key moments at Georgia that then ascended whenever he was given the chance, right? He was told he wasn't even good to be the backup when he first started. I'm intrigued by the story. And look, if he's paired with insert the team here. If he's paired in Houston well, that's not fair to Houston based on who they hired as their OC. In Tennessee, in Indianapolis, but he's with McVay, and anyone that even shakes the hand of Sean McVay ends up having some type of success or better options.
He's next.
Than shaking the hand of, Josh McDaniels, for instance. We are back at it tomorrow. I hope you'll join us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow, 3 o'clock Eastern, right here across the OutKick Network.